If it doesn't go live on Facebook, I'm just gonna end it, just so you know. Just see if I
Okay,
can
cool.
figure out
Yeah,
what.
of course.
Okay, we are live on YouTube and Facebook now.
Hello, YouTube, Facebook.
Hello.
Hey, quit it, you little perverted dog.
Hey man, I can't control them barking. All right, Shane, hit us with the intro, man.
Are you ready for this?
I'm so ready. I was born ready, bro.
All right. Give me a countdown at least, bro.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back to the Sporting Lounge. Today is November 14th, 2023, and we are talking about Week 10 NFL football. A little bit of news around college football and new rankings, everything where that's at. A couple players, couple games we want to highlight extremely over, and big news coming out of Buffalo today. So, Austin, go ahead, chop it up. Where are we starting on this?
All right. So real quick, I just wanted to kind of touch on because it was kind of big. Jimbo Fisher getting fired from Texas A&M.
Yep.
And then that massive contract that he's getting paid out. Like that man doesn't have to work a day in his life for the next 6 years, and he's getting paid $7 million a year, bro. That's wild.
For 10 years, right? Is it 10 years?
No, it's a 6 or 7.
6.
His
And then
contract,
he has a
yeah.
14.5 million payout.
That's due this
14
year
and a
within the next few months.
Yep. So this year he will be getting paid out. So within 60 days, he has to get paid that 14 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And within another 120 days, he has to get paid another 7.5. And
Mm-hmm.
then following that, annually, he will get an additional $7.5 million salary. And can you tell me why the fuck players aren't getting paid yet? Like paid a
80
substantial amount of money?
80 million.
A
Bro,
coach that's
80
not even
million.
coaching anymore.
80 million.
Texas
Wild.
A&M had that much money. Texas A&M is a great organization. It's a great college, everything and all that. But the thing is, like they're not one of the largest schools in the country by a mile. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And they're able to afford a coach that costs $80 million, and they're willing to part ways with him and go pay another coach, presumably a similar salary. Why the hell aren't players getting paid a significant margin more? If you're able to pay a coach that you're not even willing to have coach your team and build the process for more
Money,
than
bro.
2 years.
Money. Kind of what it comes. Honestly, it's just what it comes down to because they had to do that, then they'd just be paying their coach. They'd be paying out more money on a yearly basis. I think that's just
Yeah.
what it boils down to. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that and mention that real quick because I thought that was interesting and absolutely fucking wild.
Insane.
Another thing I really want to touch on a little bit is Michael Carter getting cut from the Jets.
Yeah.
And and I wanted to know who you thought would potentially pick him up, kind of thing. See if you thought anyone really could use him that much.
Let's take a look at this. Michael Carter getting cut from the Jets kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I kind of
he's
thought
a
it was
little bit
going to happen earlier.
Me too. If it was going to happen, I was assuming it was going to happen earlier.
Mhm.
You know, the thing is, like, he's a talented player. I think he could be a perfect fit for Minnesota. You know,
Oh yeah.
Madison is a good power back. He's good at catching out of the backfield and getting on swings and getting 4 or 5 yards there.
Mhm.
But the thing is, you know, Carter, he's kind of a more agility guy, you know, but he struggles catching out of the backfield actually.
Yeah, he's more
You
of a
know,
shifty
like
between the tackles.
between the tackles type guy, and he's really good at like going out into empty sets and getting receptions that way. Um, that's
Mhm.
where a significant amount of his receptions came. Um, you know, he does have 613 yards in his career receiving, but you know, it's one of those things where it's one of those things where it just comes down to, you know, I think he could be a good fit on a couple teams, you know, the Bengals, the Vikings, you know,
Vikings, I would love. I think that makes the
call
most sense to me.
call me crazy, but what about if he went to the Panthers? And call me even crazier, what if he went to the 49ers?
49ers makes no sense to me, I think, personally.
So here's the thing. Here's my scheme idea, right? You got
Mhm.
CMC and you got a guy that could learn under him. I think Carter has the tangibles as a player to be able to learn under someone like CMC and become a CMC like player. I think he has the speed. I think he just struggles with his route running out of the backfield specifically. Like he's not a great swing catcher. He's not a great block and release guy.
Mhm.
But he's able to run wheels pretty well out of the backfield, and he's able to get behind screens pretty well, and he's able to play in empty sets pretty well. So
That's
like,
fair.
you know, like when you're talking about a receiving back, and that's the big thing. You know, I'm kind of boiling Carter down to that, but you know, he's 5'8", 201 pounds. You're not trying to get him running 20 times between the tackles. He's never going to be a back that's just going to carry a team. He just doesn't have that capability because of his size.
No, but he's a good
But
change of pace back.
he's a change of pace back that's able to pick up, and that's why the Vikings and Bengals come to mind immediately. Unironically, you know, the 49ers would be a meme pickup, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did, just because it seems like they pick up players because of talent rather than need, and I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of that.
but they got Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason, which are pretty solid.
That's true too, but Michael Carter provides something that neither of them do.
You think so?
Yeah, because like the thing is with Michael Carter is like he's shorter, but he's usually able to get. You can't one hand tackle him really because
Mhm.
he's so small. It's like you get one hand on him, you're trying to tackle all of his body weight, then trying to grab just a part of him, you know. So like
Mhm.
there's that benefit, you know. But at the end of the day, like he's a good back. I'm excited to see where he goes because I don't think his career is anywhere near close to over. He's too talented. Um, I just
Sometimes you
don't
just
think
need
the
to
Jets were
change
the
the
best team.
scenery. No, they
Yeah,
weren't.
and like they have Brees Hall and Dalvin Cook. You know, like we're talking about two of the NFL's premier backs. You know, Dalvin Cook hasn't been having a great season, and Brees Hall hasn't been having as good of a season as we hope. But you know, we recognize that that's not a talent thing with the running backs. That's more of a talent thing with the offensive line. You know, we talked about it a little bit last week with Zach Wilson getting sacked 8 times in one game. You know,
Mhm.
we did the math on it. I think it was 9% of his total dropbacks he was sacked. So
Yeah,
you
shit was
know, like
wild.
it's not acceptable. You know, if Zach Wilson's not getting sacked on average, like 4 to 6, let's say 5% of his snaps total, like on
Mhm.
average, let's say I wouldn't be surprised if 5% of his dropbacks he gets sacked by the end of the season. That's obscene. You can't let your quarterback get sacked 5% of dropbacks. You know, there was a
That
season
was
with the Steelers that Ben Roethlisberger got sacked like at that rate. They made the playoffs, but Ben Roethlisberger is a Hall of Fame quarterback, and they were
right.
dropping back to pass 40 times a game. You
So
know, the Jets
that
aren't doing that.
that brings me into my next thing. What do you think about Jalen Warren being named the starter? How
Jalen
do you feel?
Warren has earned it.
Do you think that's like a permanent thing? Do you think that's just a now
I
thing?
think I don't know, like he's earned it. What else can he do
Hmm.
to like prove that he deserves it more than Najee? You know, here's the
Right.
thing. You know, like I kind of look at it as more of like a Willie Parker, Jerome Bettis situation. Like Najee's going to be the type of guy that's just going to punch the ball down people's throats. His average yards per carry aren't going to be as efficient, but the reason the Steelers were able to run so efficiently last week, if Jaylen Warren got all those touches, they wouldn't have broke 100 yards. They just wouldn't have. Like, if Jaylen Warren got all Najee's touches, it wouldn't have been like 200 yards still. It wouldn't have been 300 yards because Jaylen got all of them. They wouldn't have broke 100 yards. The thing is, they just kept feeding Najee the ball, and he's grinding the ball down these guys' throats. Najee's the type of guy you don't want to tackle. So fantasy-wise, I still think Najee has relevance. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he had more relevance because he's going to be their power back, And the last 2 weeks, the Steelers have scored both times on their opening drive, and it seems like their offense is starting to click on multiple cylinders, not all of them, but they're starting to do something.
And something to like bring what you said is they both have fantasy relevance because they're getting equal carries essentially in equal playing time. So it's like you could almost just play both of them and be confident enough, right? That
and like
get 5 points or whatever.
Yeah, like, and if this is one of those rare occasions where you could start a handcuff, you can start both, and you're comfortable. Like last year or the year before, both the last 2 years, you're able to do that with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. Like because you're like Madison's going to get me 8 points as a basement, but like Dalvin Cook's going to get me 12 to 15 points as a basement. That's 20 points combined at a basement for 2 starts, so that's 10 points per position at worst. Okay, I'm fine with that. And
not bad.
That at worst, we're looking at worst. Realistically, you're looking at 30 points in a position, so it's 15 points, and that's respectable. Like that's good.
And especially if you have a bye week too. If you have multiple players on a bye week, that's all you can ask for. It's like when I have players on a bye week and I'm putting them in the lineup, I'm just hoping for 10 points at least. Like that is my expectation, and that's what I want you to get. Anything more than that is great. But I'm not expecting like a 20-point game for someone that's on my bench and I'm putting into the lineup, essentially. So I'm cool with that.
Yeah. And, like something I do want to circle on with the Jaylen Warren thing, I don't think it actually matters who's starting for that Steelers backfield, because it seems like the Steelers are now like recognizing how good their running attack is. Jaylen Warren was a great fucking pickup for the Steelers, undrafted free agent out of
100%.
Oklahoma State. And it's just one of those things where it's like Najee's the perfect ideal grinder, and the NFL just isn't built for grinders these days. But if you have one and you have a guy like Jaylen Warren with him, now you got trouble on your hands, because now it's opening up the whole playbook. And that's what we kind of seen happen to the Packers last week was, they weren't able to stop the Steelers when they started. The Steelers had full control of that game. We'll talk about that game a little bit more in depth later. And that's something that I would love to dive into. But
before we go on to that even more, I want to ask you, like, because Leighton Vander Esch went down for the season. So how much of an impact do you think he has on the Dallas defense?
I think.
Like, do you think they'll be able to recover? Do you think they'll be able to recover nicely, or do you think that's going to majorly impact them?
I think it's a massive like issue, because like the thing is, like, Micah has been having a killer season because he doesn't have to drop back into zone coverage nearly as much. He's able to, Micah, and we were talking about this, I think, last week. We were talking about, defensive player of the year. You compare TJ Watt and Micah together, and then you compare like Myles Garrett and Max Crosby together, because they're just 4-3 versus 3-4. Micah gets to get a lot of those stats like TJ Watt does because he's able to rely on his secondary in the middle of the field. So TJ, he's got Minka behind him. He has Quan Alexander behind him. He has JPJ who's coming up behind him. He has Patrick Peterson. So as that defense gets better, TJ Watt will get better because he's able to pass rush more. And as I said in that episode, if I had to build my team, I'd take TJ. But if I was picking MVP at that time or defensive player of the year at that time, I'd take Micah because he's probably going to end up getting the shinier stat line.
Right.
Micah's not going to get those shiny stats nearly as efficiently now just because he doesn't have that security blanket behind him.
Yeah, he's going to have to do more now. Do a little more. So he might. I don't know. But it's definitely going to hurt that Cowboys defense majorly because Lane Vander Esch was a big part of that defense.
Oh, yeah, and it might be career ending.
Potentially, yeah.
So there's a serious conversation because of the injury it is. Because they're scared of it being a Ryan Shazier type situation moving forward. It's not right now. But
because of his neck, yeah.
Because of his neck, and it's a chronic injury. So with that being said, we don't want to see something happen to the guy like a Ryan Shazier type injury. I'm not saying that just as a Steelers fan, obviously. We just never want to see a player go down like that. Vander Esch is an extremely talented middle linebacker, and he provides so much for that Dallas defense. They're going to be missing him, but there's a chance that he never suits up again, too.
Right. And this isn't the first time he has had neck issues either, too. Because that was like a big concern for him coming out of college back in 2017, 2018. I believe it was 2018.
2018.
Yeah, it was his neck, but then he had like some kind of neck procedure that helped him out a lot. And like you say, this is not an injury you want to see anyone have, especially.
Yeah, and the risk versus the reward. He loves the game and he'll want to come back, but and probably he will. But if he does retire, you can't really blame the guy because here's the risk versus reward. Either make more millions of dollars, which he already has a lot of money. And if you do that, you're risking never being able to walk again. That's the risk versus reward. So you can either cut it, walk away, or you can keep on high rolling because he's going to get a big contract because he deserves it and risk never being able to walk again. That's the situation.
It's a massive risk to take. I don't know. We'll know more in the coming days and weeks and months, but I want him to come back just because as a fan, I love watching him play. But also
spectacular player. Best thumper in he's the best thumper in the NFL right now. I don't think there's a better thumper in the NFL.
But as a person, I also don't want him to because that type of injury is nothing to play around with, right? So as a person, I just want the best for him, but also as a fan, I want to watch him play again.
As a human being, it's hard to witness what could happen. And we recognize the risk on it. So that's the scary thing. I would love to see him come back too. He's a player that I would love to see play a full career, and hopefully this injury and what I'm saying is just me being over dramatic and it ends up just not mattering because that's what I hope happens. But there is a chance that he does walk away from the game and there's no pride lost with it either because, there's more to life than just football. There's more to life, helping your son take his first steps, walking on the beach with your wife, these critical moments that he won't get to experience if he continues playing football, possibly. But hopefully I'm just being over dramatic. Hopefully that's what it is. Hopefully he comes back too. And I don't think it's a question if he wants to come back. I don't think he'll retire. I think the issue will be if he gets cut because he won't be able to pass a physical. And if that's the case scenario, if this is nerve damage, then his career is probably done.
Which would be unfortunate and not a great way to go out.
100%.
It'd be super sad to see that way. Two quick notes of things to kind of touch on real quick before we get into the games. Really quick. Nick Chubb had his second surgery on his knee to repair. And then Zay Jones got arrested for domestic battery, misdemeanor. He got charged with a misdemeanor and domestic battery today. Just two quick little tidbits I saw before the episode. I'm just mentioning pieces of news.
Well,
Actually,
the Browns are rallying around, Nick Chubb being down. Have you seen the hashtag going around?
Mm-mm.
Do it for Chubb. Hashtag do it for Chubb.
I love that, man.
I hate it. I hate it as a Steelers fan, but I love it, if I was a Cleveland fan. And I love it for Nick Chubb. I said it when he went down. You want to talk about a class act. You want to talk about a guy that is the type of guy you want to have on your team. I would love Nick Chubb to be on any team deserves a Nick Chubb, except for the Browns, and somehow the Browns ended up landing him
with Nick Chubb. Yeah. No, that's really cool because it's always cool when you see stuff like that happen, right? People just rallying around them, and it's just an amazing thing to see. And it reminds you of the beauty of sports in a way, because sometimes people get so caught up in their emotions and angry and stuff like that, but then you see stuff like that, and you're like, oh, that's cool as hell.
That's sweet. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's nice.
All right, Shane, why don't you lead us off into our first game?
So we talked about it a little bit on Friday, but Aussies Patriots go ahead and fall down to the Indianapolis Colts 10-6. So something I wanted to circle on a little bit more.
A pathetic ass game.
It was pathetic. The game was bad. And the thing is too, Bailey Zappi got the nod later on in the game.
Yeah, it went 3 for 7.
He went 3 for 7 and he threw a pick, but also it's one of those things where it's he kind of got thrown into the fire at the end of the game. It was do or die, and the Colts knew it was do or die. So they just held the ground and forced him to throw a pick, similar to what ends up happening to Jordan Love, which we'll get into in a minute. But it's one of those situations where that pick that he threw wasn't necessarily a bad pick. It was just a pick that had to happen, because if he didn't throw it there, then they have no chance of winning.
Well, I mean,
at least throw it up and fucking hope.
It was I think it was on a third down, might have been a fourth down, but it was on a fucking why can't I think? Why are words hard right now? A fake spike. There we go.
Yeah.
He did it on a fake spike and then threw it right over the middle into the double cover. So, I mean, it wasn't the best throw, but also at the same time, he was pretty much about to get sacked. So, I mean, he kind of had to let it go, at least have some kind of chance instead of just getting sacked and just taking it, because there was 30 seconds.
There's 36 seconds left.
Yeah, so they had literally no no choice at all.
But, yeah, and it kind of sucks that he only got one drive. With that being said, do you think he gets the nod moving forward?
No.
Do you think if he carried that? Do you think if he won that game, he would? Neither do I.
No, I mean, because you have to do more than that to prove that you are worthy of the starting spot. Because he's been in that system for almost 2 years now. But I mean, also at the same time, the Patriots, I think, feel some type of loyalty towards Mac Jones because they drafted him 15th overall.
That's kind of how I feel.
Also at the same time, I still think Mac Jones is the better quarterback than Bailey Zappi.
See, that's where I have to disagree.
That's fine. I think Zappi's a decent quarterback, but I don't like him enough to put him over Mac Jones at the moment.
Here's my thing with Zappi. I think he's more raw than Jones. I think Jones, the reason that he was even valued at a first round pick was because he was NFL ready. We knew that he didn't have the talent. We knew that he didn't have a cannon. We just hoped that he was a smart enough quarterback to be able to manage games and go into a situation where he was going to be able to manage games with a good defense. He got put into that exact situation, and he hasn't been able to thrive, and he hasn't been able to succeed at all. So, the thing is with Bailey Zappi is he's the exact opposite of Mac Jones. He's not NFL ready, but he's probably one of the most talented prospects that we've seen come into the NFL in the last 10 years at QB. Just talking pure raw talent. You know,
see, that's why I think the Patriots are still holding on to him and keep bringing him back, because they hope that he can develop into that starter. But they don't think he's quite ready yet to take on that full workload as a starter.
yeah.
So I do like Bailey Zappi, but I just don't think he's at that spot where he can be the full-time starter. Nor do I think they're going to put him in that spot halfway through the season.
Let me ask you this:
if
at
they do
what
make
point?
if they do make a change, it's going to be next year.
So that's what I was about to say. At what
Okay.
point do you do it? Because they're 2-8. You're
Next
not
year.
getting in the playoffs this year.
Next
So
year.
why not just fucking do it now?
Next year. I mean, because if Bailey Zappi does ball out and you start winning games, that kind of fucks your draft position. And if they do want to go
So?
quarterback early, you got to have a top pick to get a quarterback, right? You got
But
to
let
have
me
a
slow
top
you up
five,
there.
top 6.
Let me slow you up there, right? Because check it. Bailey Zappi is cheap. Not just rookie deal cheap, but cheap rookie deal. Because he was
Mhm.
taken in the 4th. So we're talking about like a very cheap quarterback that you got for 2 or 3 seasons. Mac Jones, his deal is expiring here. You know, I think this is his last year on the deal, unless they pick up this 5th year.
Next year will be his 4th year.
Next year is his 4th year. Okay.
Yeah.
But even so, like he's still on a cheap deal too. And you can let Mac Jones walk and you have a valuable backup quarterback. You get to see what Zappi's worth. And sure, you might take a hit in your draft capital, but realistically, Zappi's not going to go out there and win the rest of the games throughout the season and lead the Patriots to 9-8 if he were to start immediately. But what he might do is get you 2 or 3 wins, show that he's worth something compared to Mac Jones, because Mac Jones has had over half the season to prove himself. He's got 2 wins. If you start Zappi today, then if Zappi gets 2 or 3 wins, that tells you he's winning more than Mac Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that he does go out and rip out 4 or 5 wins and gets you guys to 6 or 7 wins. Sure, you're drafting around 12 to 14, but you know, someone who's been falling down the draft board who might be at that spot is like Kool-Aid. Someone who's falling down the draft board is like Joe Alt out of Notre Dame.
So I get your logic, but at the same time, what we've seen like time and time again, unless I'm wrong, is that teams are not going to just make a change typically in the middle of the season, let alone with like 7 games left in the season at quarterback.
So we've seen it before with some organizations.
And definitely not the Patriots.
So that's what I was about to say. The Patriots are one of those organizations where they want to win. It doesn't matter if they're going to make the playoffs or not. They're not an organization like the Panthers. They're not an organization like the Rams. They're not an organization like the Giants that throw seasons halfway through and just say, fuck it, it's over. They're just not. And because of that, that's why I'm kind of like, maybe. And, you know, Patriots didn't start their fucking QB halfway through the season. Oh, okay. Tom Brady.
What about him?
He started off Drew Bledsoe getting fucking injured, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If Bailey's I think realistically, the best chance for Zappi to start full time is Mac Jones to get injured. But with that being said, I would not be surprised if Bill Belichick feels his seat getting a little hot and decides to make a change.
I think it's the right option because like you already have the asset on your roster, man. Like being a Steelers fan, I kind of feel like a dumbass for the Steelers not keeping Joshua Dobbs. That's the type of situation you're starting to get into with Bailey Zappi because he only has 2 years left guaranteed.
Maybe
after this season, you know, like I wish that the Steelers would have just started Joshua Dobbs, and if he was playing like this in Pittsburgh, then holy fuck, that would have been awesome, and we wouldn't have needed to go get Kenny Pickett.
But Joshua Dobbs also might not have been ready at that time, you know.
True, but also you have like half a season left on a season that's already down the drain. Like there is a chance, there's a cold chance in hell the Patriots could turn this around and get in the playoffs. There's a chance. They're not mathematically out of it, but realistically, they are.
Not yet.
So, like, because of that, I think that Bailey Zappi does deserve like at least 3 starts this season. Give him a fucking shot, man.
Nah.
I know he probably won't.
Nah, Mackie boy. Mackie boy all day. That's about where I'm at.
Man.
I don't know. I loved Mac Jones coming out of college, so I'm sad it's turned like this. But also at the same time, the Patriots did no favors to that team. They never have. They never invested in offense. They've always only invested really in defense, right? Because they never had a certified downfield threat consistently. You might be able to argue Rob Gronkowski and Julian Edelman, but there are sometimes but they're more short over the middle type things.
Yeah,
they're
slot
from like
guys.
a deep threat. Yeah, they were never really a deep threat. You know, like a Deshaun Jackson or a Randy Moss or anything like that. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't think they're going to make that change. I hope they don't because I like Mac. And I wanted him to succeed, but also like Bailey Zappi a little bit. But I think he kind of rushes his reads a little bit. I think that's one of his bigger flaws right now.
So
but Mac Jones also holds on to the Mac Jones. Like for me, the way it looks to me a little bit with him is he just takes too long.
Yeah,
to go through his reads, and that really fucks him up. So it's like with those two quarterbacks, you're on like the opposite end of the spectrum.
that's what
one is too quick, one takes too long. So it's like, what the hell is going on?
And the thing is, like the Patriots aren't able to go vertical with Mac Jones. They just can't because Mac Jones doesn't have the arm.
They also don't have the weapons, arguably.
Mac Jones had Well, I mean, like you had Jacoby Myers, who I think could definitely be considered a deep threat. Like it doesn't help that he's on the Raiders right now with Devontae Adams.
Yeah, but watching him last year, you'd be like, you don't really see him get open downfield that often. But also, to Jacoby Myers' credit, they weren't really doing a whole lot of that. They were doing a lot of short intermediate passes. No, because
you can't with Mac Jones.
I think it's more because Matt Patricia was the play caller.
Hmm.
Because between last year and this year for the Patriots offense, you've seen it open up a lot more, right? They're opening up the playbook more than they did last year. They're calling more creative plays. They're calling smarter plays. They're trying to utilize. They're trying to utilize their personnel a lot more than they did last year, and I think a lot of that is because Matt Patricia is not the play caller, and he never should have been last year. That was one of the bigger mistakes of the Patriots' career for Bill Belichick, I think.
Yeah, I agree. This game was boring. Nothing really to write home about. Jonathan Taylor, was Jonathan Taylor, 23 touches, 69 yards. Gardner Minshew managed the game, got him to a victory.
He was good enough.
Now, I want to move to a game where game manager isn't a term you could use for either QB in this matchup. And that's Houston-Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah. That got intense down to the final drive, man. That was a good game.
It was insane.
After this game, though, because we were talking about MVP candidates last week and how CJ Stroud should be.
This was the valuable win. This is the valuable win I was talking about. This is one of those valuable wins where at the end of the season, we're looking back. If the Texans make the fucking playoffs, if the Texans somehow manage to win the division, especially, spoiler alert, after Jacksonville got fucking annihilated against the 49ers, and, now it's a one-game division, they somehow managed to win this division, and we're starting to look back through CJ Stroud's catalog. Oh, yeah, he did put up 30 points on Cincinnati. Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, dude. This was that win for him, and it kind of just solidifies my feelings towards him that he should be at least in that conversation. I'm not saying he has to win, but he deserves to be in that conversation.
Definitely, because check it. Shredded the Steelers defense. And we've been seeing what at the time we were like, okay, is the Steelers defense the real deal? I think now we could say definitely they are. They're a top 5 defense. The Steelers played like a top 5 defense against 2 of their first 4 teams. The other 2 teams beat them by 30 points. And Houston happened to be one of them. Since then, they haven't let up a game.
Yeah.
One game. They've let up one game. But, even then I wouldn't blame their defense necessarily. And, at this juncture, CJ Stroud, 2,626 yards. You know, like he's on pace for almost 5,000 yards passing. And, you know, you got the win over the Jaguars. You got the win over the Steelers. You got the win over a good Bucs defense putting up 39 points on them. You got the win over the Bengals. You know, if they end up beating the Jaguars, they control their own fate. The Texans do. They end up taking care of business against the Jaguars in 2 weeks. They got Cardinals this week. But, you know, take care of the Jaguars in 2 weeks.
Even if they do lose to the Jags, though, they still own the tiebreaker. Potentially.
No, they don't.
If they end up with the same record, they do. Yeah. If they end with the same record, they do. Because they already beat them once. And they would get
then it would come down to divisional.
I thought they had him in division already.
I
could have been wrong.
I'll double check real quick.
I could be wrong, but that's what I
I'll
thought.
double check.
But
yeah.
anyways,
so at this juncture,
while you're looking that up,
divisionally.
Okay. Yeah. You go ahead.
The Jaguars are 2-1 in the division. Texans are 1-1.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you could be right. It just depends on how the other 2 games fall for the Jags, and it depends on how the other 3 games fall for the Texans.
Right. So at this pace, though, because Andrew Luck owns the rookie QB yards record, on this pace, though, he's on pace to break that this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely wild.
Shatter it.
Yeah, he's on pace to break it by 400.
Yeah.
Because Andrew
so
Luck
you can't use the excuse that he has an extra game.
Yeah, Andrew Luck beat it back in 2012 with 4,374 yards.
Because
and the record for touchdowns is 31, and I believe he's on pace to break that as well.
I think he is right on the verge of being on pace for it.
Do you think
he's right under it right now?
Okay, let me ask you this, since we're on the topic. What more do you think he has to do? Do you think he has to break the records and get to the playoffs?
Yes.
To be in that conversation?
Yeah. And I think there's key wins that he needs to get, and I want to go over those.
Okay.
He's already gotten a couple of them. You know, the Ravens would have been a big one, but they didn't get it. That was week 1. Jaguars, that was a big one, but I think they need to beat the Jaguars twice for it to be solidified.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the Steelers, and the Steelers have been proven to be a top 5 defense this season. Like, they let up a lot of yards, but they don't let points. They let up 30 points to CJ Stroud's led Texans. They took care of the Bucs, which I don't think is going to be a win that when we look back, it's going to be as impressive, but you got to understand at the time. You got to understand at the time, the Bucs had a very good defense, or do have a very good defense. And it's just one of those things where it's like, that game was a shootout, and CJ Stroud clutched up in the 4th quarter and won that game for the Texans. Otherwise, if Davis Mills was at quarterback, would they have won that game?
No.
If Davis Mills was your quarterback on that last drive, would you have won that game?
No. I think it will be looked back on as, if it is looked on as a good win, it's only because of that final drive that won it. Right? I think that's what people are talk about.
I think that's what solidifies it as a good win is because of that drive. He clutched up in crunch time and got it.
I would agree.
And then Bengals. So then they got that win 30-27 this week. Then, as I said earlier, Jags again. And then their next big game that they need to win for CJ Stroud to actually be relevant in this conversation is the Browns. If he ends up taking down the Jags, the Browns, breaks the records, and wins the division, it's hard to not give it to him. It's really hard not to.
See, I'm okay if he doesn't win it, but if he's not at least in that conversation, you know, like, then I have a real problem with it. Kind of like how I had a problem with Brock Purdy being a finalist last year for Rookie of the Year. I thought that was fucking ludicrous and insane because Chris Olave should have been in that. Kenneth Walker should have been in that over Brock Purdy. Mm-hmm. You know, but if he's at least in the conversation, I'm okay with that because I think that's what he deserves already, and especially if he makes it to playoffs and beats some records possibly too, then he deserves to at least be, you know, in that conversation because he's earned it at that point. Like, what more do you want from a rookie quarterback?
Yeah, like, and let's go ahead and fucking throw this out the window. What else more could you want from a quarterback? Period.
That
Like, let me ask you this: if Patrick Mahomes was on the Texans right now, would he be playing as good as CJ Stroud is right now?
if he was on the Texans, you said?
If Patrick Mahomes was on the Texans and says CJ Stroud, would he be playing as good as CJ Stroud is right now?
I think so. Because the Texans got some low key really good weapons.
They
on
do.
offense, and they
But-
did really well. I think he'd be playing good.
But
I think he'd still be playing good.
you had to pause for a second. You're like, hold up, maybe
Well,
maybe
because-
Shane's onto something.
Well, because if we're talking, because like that kind of brings up the question to me. I don't know why, because I kind of just thought of this. Like, what if Patrick Mahomes was on the Bears? Would we
Yeah.
still be talking about him in the same light?
No,
Probably not. No. You know.
No.
But I do think if Patrick Mahomes was on the Texans, he would be playing just as good, if not better.
do you think he'd be playing better than CJ Stroud on the Texans right now?
I think they'd be about the same as rookies.
Okay, so
I-
if they're
I put
playing
them
at
about
about
the
the same, yeah, I agree. You know, I'm excited to see where CJ Stroud is going to go. I'm really high on him. Obviously, I was high on the Texans coming into the season,
We both were, yeah. He's got a bright future,
and
man. I
D'Amico
swear.
Ryans, hats off to you, fucking doing a great job. And CJ Stroud's getting so much of the glory. Will Anderson deserves to be in the discussion for defensive rookie of the year too. Just what they're doing there is scary because that team's young. They're doing it right. They're building through the draft. It's nice to see a team that's doing it right and is succeeding. It's not all these free agency acquisitions. It's just they're building guys through the draft, and then they got key players like Laramie Tunsil that are going to lead the locker room that they've had for 3 or 4 years now.
Right, and they're drafting
that being-
smart too. So it's like all their draft picks are smart and fairly good. It's not like they're just
Yeah.
taking 8, 9 players or whatever and hoping to his, but like they're drafting very smart and methodically, and I love to see
Yep.
it.
Exactly. Like right on the. I think you hit it right on the head. It's not only are they getting guys that are, the best at their position, but they're getting those picks that are best at their position and best fit. And I think that's critical.
Very critical. I agree.
With that being said, let's move on to our next game, which is going to be Saints Vikings.
I think I said the Saints were going to win this one. I believe, if I remember correctly. Thought
I
the
can
Saints were
check
going to
real
win.
quick.
I'm kind of
can
sad I
check.
said that.
I think I said Vikings were going to win. I'm going to double check right now. Go ahead and start talking about it while I get this pulled up.
Joshua Dobbs is just a fucking stud, I think, at this point. Like, he's having a Geno Smith type season, like a resurgence
Mhm.
in that way, where he was kind of forgotten about in the same way Geno Smith was. But I think to a lesser extent, because Geno Smith obviously was, a starter for a while and everything like that. But I'm happy for Josh Dobbs because he's been playing great and he's, I think, earned it by large and far. Like he's played well, he's played excellent, and I think there's a real conversation to be had if he does keep playing this way and keeps getting them wins, and especially gets them to the playoffs at the minimum, that the Vikings really start to think about just signing him instead of Kirk Cousins, because Joshua Dobbs would be cap wise a lot cheaper,
Yep.
So I think that's a real conversation they're going to have here coming soon, especially when the preseason hits and before, like the summertime, when contracts come up, because they're both due for a contract. Right? Both their contracts expire after this year, so it's like, what are they going to do? Cap wise, Joshua Dobbs is the right move, because Kirk Cousins is
And,
going
like-
to cost them 25-30 mil at least.
So, here's this decision you got to make. By the way, I want to pause real quick. So we called the Colts game correctly. We both said Colts. You said 24-21. I said 21-13. We were all scored, but we were correct on our pick. Texans, Bengals. You said Bengals 34-31. I said 41-31 Texans. I was correct, obviously. And then Saints and Vikings. You said Saints. I said Vikings. You said 31-21. I said 38-31, respectively. But yeah, like here's the thing. Joshua Dobbs provides you two things that Kirk Cousins won't: more cap space and younger. So like,
yeah, because he's like
you get
6
that
years
benefit.
younger.
Yeah, and then with Kirk Cousins, what you get is guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you don't know how long that guarantee is going to be good for anymore.
Yeah, because he's like 34, 35. It's like,
yeah,
how many more years does he play? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? You don't really know. Because especially when you start getting to that age as a quarterback, you're kind of just almost going year by year, from what it seems like.
So he'll be
through a lot of
36 by the
interviews.
start of next season.
Okay, yeah. So it's like, does he play one more year? Does he play 2? Does he 3, 4? You don't know. It's almost a year by year kind of thing, as I said earlier. But at least with Joshua Dobbs, as you said, he's younger. He's more agile. He's quicker. So it's like, do you just give him the 4-year, $30 million or whatever, Because he's probably only going to command. He's not going to command 30 million like Kirk Cousins would at the minimum.
Nope.
Joshua Dobbs,
you probably get him for 15 mil.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I know you're saying, and I was like 15, buddy. That's what you're looking for.
15 over like 4 years or something like that.
Yeah, and like you can really build a playoff roster around a guy that's that cheap and that good.
Yeah, because then that gives you the freedom to sign like Justin Jefferson, he's coming up for a contract here soon after next year, I believe.
And it lines up perfectly with Jordan Addison too.
And you're going to need that cap space.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that kind of gives you pause because Justin Jefferson said at one point, I believe, that he was going to follow essentially Kirk Cousins. And that he wants
but also he didn't play with Josh Dobbs yet. And he hasn't yet.
That's also true. So
what happens when he has a 200-yard receiving game the first game he comes back with Josh Dobbs? I'd flip my opinion really quick if I were Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. It's kind of just like a wait and see. We're going to have to do, unfortunately. But sure. I would love to see Justin Jefferson retire as a Viking. I love watching players play for one team, personally, their whole career.
Me too.
I think that's so dope and so cool. But the best move,
especially generational talents like Justin Jefferson,
right? And the best move for the Vikings might honestly be Josh Dobbs, because then that gives them. Because if you re-sign Kirk Cousins, you gotta have to worry about quarterback within a year or two potentially, right? Because you don't really know when they're going to retire. At least with Josh Dobbs, you at least got 4 years.
Is there a world where they re-sign both of them?
I think there is. I think there is, but I think Kirk Cousins is also ballsy enough to test the free agent market too as well.
Yeah.
Because I think, kind of like what we talked about last week, I think there's a world where the Patriots could try and sign Kirk Cousins to like a $30 million contract for 2 years or something like that.
Especially if they get a guy like Drake May.
Yeah. I think there's a very real possibility that could happen. I don't really know.
Or Bo Nixon.
Because like the Patriots are the first team that comes to mind for me, personally, to go after a Kirk Cousins type quarterback in free agency. I don't really know
unless Matthew Stafford retires.
Yeah, but Stetson Bennett's not a bad quarterback though either. He looked pretty good.
Yeah, but would you rather have Bennett or Kirk Cousins?
That's a fair point.
You have here's the thing with the Rams that are kind of scary.
Depends.
Like they have a playoff roster, low key. They just aren't playing up to where they should be. And they're 3-6 right now. They're in a tough division. And honestly, I think Kirk Cousins is better than Matthew Stafford by a significant margin, especially at this point of their careers. You know, if we're talking about Matthew
What
Stafford versus Kirk Cousins 10 years ago.
what makes you say that?
So a big thing for
What
me is
about
like,
Kirk? Yeah, what about the Kirk Cousins game makes you think he's better or says he's better?
so first things first is targets of open receivers.
Mhm.
Matthew Stafford misses 27% of them compared to Kirk Cousins missing under 3%. So significant there.
Mhm.
Matthew Stafford, you know, he's a stone statue in the pocket and he has no agility. Kirk Cousins has that hidden vanilla speed, if you know what I mean. Vanilla Vic at moments, you know.
That hidden
But
speed, a hidden agility.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, he does have a little bit of mobility in the pocket. He has swagger, which I just like Matthew Stafford doesn't have at this point of his career. You know, I think Kirk Cousins is the better leader, you know, and the thing is like 10 years ago, if we were comparing them to one another, is Matthew Stafford all day. The thing is,
Yeah.
I think Matthew Stafford stopped progressing a few years ago, and we're at max Matthew Stafford, and we're only going to see the decline now. And I think we're on the decline. I think Kirk Cousins has a couple more seasons at this high level of play, which Stafford doesn't. And if Stafford, the thing is, Stafford retires, you're going to get a guy that's similar to Stafford and be able to just plug and play him.
And
And
especially
that's a
with
great
those
fit.
weapons that they have too, like
Yeah, man.
that'd be dangerous.
And you're getting a high draft pick. So, like, you're getting 2 or 3 guys that are going to be automatic starts on your defense on a roster that, or it's similar to what I was talking about with the Texans this past off season. They have gaping
Mhm.
holes in certain positions that, you know, they're going to be able to fill through the draft.
Right.
You know, just solid, good draft picks will get them there.
I
Because
get
they're
that.
picking high. And
I
I
like
believe
it.
they have all their draft picks this season. Let me double
The
check
Rams?
that. Yeah, I think they had. This is the first year in a few years that they have all their draft picks.
That'd be kind of wild. They might.
2024.
Shit.
Um, the Rams currently hold their own first round pick in 2024.
Hmm.
So with that being said, you know, like with where their record is, you know, assuming that they keep winning about 25% or 33% of their games projected, you know, just like, you know, they got the Browns, they got the 49ers, but they also had the Giants and the Saints. They have the Ravens, so that's a tough game. They also have the Cardinals, they have the Seahawks who have been hot and cold. You know, so let's say that they go ahead and let's say 500 against Seahawks. Cardinals should be a win. Browns should be a loss. Ravens should be a loss. Commanders is the other 500. So let's go ahead and say Seahawks is a win. Commanders is a loss. Saints should be a loss. Giants should be a win. 49ers should be a loss. So they're getting 3 more wins. So they're going to be, you know, a 6-win team.
Hmm.
You know, like, so they're picking what, 10th to 12th overall, realistically.
Yeah, some
And
of that
that's
10 to
that's the
15
exact,
range.
you know, like, that's what I was talking about earlier with the Patriots. You know, you're going to be able to get a guy that is like Kool-Aid there. You know, you are going to be able to get, you're able to get like the kid out of UCLA, the edge rusher. I can't think of his name. Or you could even trade up to get the kid out of Indiana, the defensive lineman. I'm farting on their names right now. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
But you know, like there's a lot of really, really, really talented defensive pieces that you can get in this draft. And you know, you can get the safety out of Miami. There's just a lot of really talented players that are available at that draft position that will be able to turn the tide of your defense. And you know, when it comes to the second round, you know, Khalid King from Penn State might be available in the second round. You know, which when Joey Porter Jr. was in Penn State, that's why when JPJ was there, that pass defense was so tough to deal with because you have 2 lockdown corners on both sides of the fucking ball. It's tough. You know, like with the Rams, they really could turn this around, and getting a guy like Kirk Cousins could go ahead and settle that score.
You think that would help if they got Kirk Cousins, right? What would you put their odds at winning the Super Bowl, or at least making it that far?
making it to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, at least or the NFC title game, right? Would you put it at
1 in 50?
greater than 1 in 50?
Yeah.
Damn, that's low. That's
I
crazy.
mean, I don't know what their draft is. Like it depends on what their draft is. It depends on their free agents moves. But they do have the pieces to make that type of movement, though.
Right.
Like they do have Aaron Donald. They do have Puka. They do have Cooper.
That's
They
what I'm
have
saying.
Tutu.
So like if he does
Like-
go there, I think it's like at least a 50-50.
So you think it's 1 and 2 that the Rams go to the Super Bowl?
Or at
If Kirk
least make it
Cousins
that
goes there.
far. I would not be surprised if the Rams and Kirk Cousins made it to at least the NFC title game.
So you're saying okay? So I just wanted to make sure you understood the bet that you just made, and you do. You're saying that they're going to be an NFC Championship tier team just with the acquisition of Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I mean it's not out of the realm of possibilities. That's how they were with Kirk Cousins. I mean Matthew.
But that's a
Stafford.
bet you're willing to make.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd be willing to make that bet.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Team that is going to go to the Super Bowl this season. Packers, Steelers.
Wait, what? Are we talking about the right teams?
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Do you want to rephrase that? But I mean, shit, with the way the
The
Steelers
team,
been playing,
the team that won,
so I don't know.
the team that won this week is going to win the Super Bowl this season.
That's crazy. That's so crazy.
Hey,
not they played the 49ers again in the title game.
Hey, bro, that's revenge tour. You remember my fucking season prediction? Not the live one, the one I did in the Discord, and I was like, the Steelers will go on the revenge tour in the playoffs and avenge each loss they got. And it's starting to shape up like that. It actually is. Like it's actually starting to shape up like
low key. I mean, you're not wrong. And I hate that you're kind of right. But
the revenge tour.
Let's see. It's because they got the Browns next week. That's potentially a good game. Then they got the Bengals, then the Cardinals, then the Patriots. Easy win. Colts, I think it's gonna be easy win.
So this is kind of a must win for Cleveland. It is a must win for the Steelers. Because Steelers win this week, they move into a really comfortable spot in the AFC North because they're only half a game behind Baltimore.
Yeah.
So Baltimore does play Cincinnati this week, especially if Baltimore loses to Cincinnati. That puts the Steelers in like a really, really good spot if they somehow manage to beat the Browns.
I think
they take care of business against. I think they could too. They beat them this season already. But the Browns really need this win. Like the Browns need this win because the Steelers already beat them. So, when with the division so tight, you cannot get swept if you're the Browns. Right. But, if the Steelers take care of business, I think these next 2 weeks realistically might decide if the Steelers win the AFC North or not. Because these next 2 weeks, they got the Browns and the Bengals. Mm-hmm. Especially if the Ravens lose to Cincy this week, they might lose their grasp and then they might not be able to get it back. So like remaining schedule for the Steelers, you got Browns, Bengals, both away. Then you come back home, you go ahead and meet the Cardinals, and you have the Patriots on Thursday night. Yeah. Then you go to Daytona for the Colts. Then you come back home for the Bengals, go away for the 12th man in Seattle, and then you go to Baltimore for the final game of the season. And
you said that game low key could decide the division winner.
It definitely could.
It could come down to that, right? Because I think both teams at this point, I think I'd be saying this about the Steelers, but it could be 1 and 2 between them, and it could just be that game deciding it.
Yep. I
I think
wouldn't be
that's a
surprised
very
if it was.
yeah. I think that's a very realistic possibility at this point.
You know, the Steelers do have a tough couple games coming up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think there's a game that jumps off the screen and is screaming like this is tough for the Steelers other than the Ravens, but you know, the Ravens are one of those games where it's like it's not tough like when we were talking about the Steelers versus 49ers week 1. I was like, I don't know how the Steelers could beat the 49ers. It's not that type of tough. It's more like the tough where it's like this is going to be a good game tough.
Right.
You know, the thing is with the 49ers, we've seen flaws in their offense since the Steelers played them. When the Steelers played them, it was Brock Purdy, the unkillable. And now teams have kind of figured out his Achilles heel, specifically soft zone coverage with your mic is a very big issue. We've seen the Jacksonville Jaguars did not attend to that belief last week, and they got to see the world ender. They didn't get to see Brock Purdy, the chump. So with that being said, you know, like when the Steelers played the 49ers, they were built like this unstoppable force. Now we've seen the 49ers lose a few games, and there's a few ways you can beat them. You know, you keep Christian McCaffrey contained, which is easier said than done, and you make it so the big thing is keeping your mic in zone coverage, and you pretty much want to spy CMC. That's pretty much what you got to do to beat this 49ers team on offense.
Right.
You do that, you're going to make them one-dimensional, and you force Brock Purdy to pass the ball, especially a team like the Steelers. They could take care of business, but that's besides the point. You know,
this division is about to
how
get
many
so
of these
interesting,
games
though, and
yeah. How many wins do you think the Steelers realistically get?
I think they could get at least to 10. I think that might be at worst,
Yeah, me too.
honestly.
Because
So the rest of their schedule, I think they're going to split the Bengals. I think they're going to go 1-1 against them. I think
Sure.
they could lose to the Browns this week, but
Which
I think
would be a split.
realistically, right? But I think realistically they'll beat them,
Mhm.
and then they'll beat the Cardinals and Patriots and the Colts,
Mhm.
and then I think they'll probably beat the Seahawks and then lose to the Ravens. Which
so
at
this
that
is
point,
what I'm thinking.
which at that point though, they still make the playoffs, most likely.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm thinking they beat the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking they lose to the Bengals. I'm thinking they beat the Cards. I'm thinking they beat the Patriots. I'm thinking they lose to the Colts. I'm thinking they beat the Bengals. I'm thinking they beat the Seahawks and beat the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I were to put a bet in, that's how I would do it. Just because I don't know, man. There's a few things with the Steelers team that I want to circle on a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to call it my game of the week because Houston and Cincinnati was supposed to be my game of the week. I didn't actually fucking call it, so I'm calling it here. Fuck you.
That's that's fine. Didn't need to fuck you, but I'll take it.
Hey, you know, and you're up. You know, a couple things with the Steelers team that like is really like, okay, this could be serious. Is first things first, Broderick Jones starting on right tackle. The difference that has made on the Steelers offensive line, day and night, immediate impact. Dan Moore's been able to lock down the left side efficiently. He's looking solid. You know, Deontay Johnson coming back, looking good. George Pickens hasn't been getting the ball as much as he should, and that's the reality of the situation. You know, Matt Canada coming down to the sidelines is probably going to help with that, though. You know, a guy that's hungry like George Pickens, he can come up to Canada now and say, give me the ball. And Canada will be like, yes or no, you know? And when you got a talented guy like George Pickens and he's pissed off and he says, give me the ball, you figure out a fucking way to give him the ball. That's what happened last week. You know, reportedly, there was reports coming out that the offensive line, he went over and started talking to the offensive line, and they said, keep running the ball. There's a report going, there's a report coming out that the offensive line was all happy, joy after Najee got that touchdown on the opening drive, and Matt Canada went over there. You know what? It's not Matt Canada anymore. We're talking about Matt America, baby. Matt
Man, not just
America.
2 episodes ago, you were like, "Fire Matt Canada, fire Matt Canada."
Hey, bro, if we keep playing like this, because okay, this is the whole thing I've been saying all season. Run the fucking ball, we win the fucking game. What happened last week?
Fair.
What happened the week before?
Yeah.
You got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, both studs at running back.
Potentially the
You
best
got Broderick Jones.
Potentially the best 1-2 combo.
Yeah, and you got Kenny Pickett at QB, who like
Blech.
is good enough to manage games. We can agree that he's good enough to manage games.
Just good enough. Yeah.
You know, you got Calvin Austin as kind of a secret weapon. You know, Connor Hayward's been playing really well, especially since Pat Freiermuth went on IR. You know, something I like the most about Jalen Warren is blocking ability in Byfield. And you look at their defense and like, yeah, you know, they're down quite a few players. Minka's supposed to be back this week, but with the emergence of Joey Porter Jr., you know, with the emergence of Keanu Benton being able to see snaps and being efficient, you know, with the emergence of Mark Robinson, you know, with Patrick Peterson finally finding his place in the defense and Levi Wallace not being a fucking starting cornerback anymore, you know, we're starting to see this team really come together in a good way late in the season. And they're starting to get healthy at the good time too, you know, knock on wood, of course. But you got Cam Hayward back finally. You haven't had him all season. Look what happened to Aaron Jones last week. Got devoured. And Cam Hayward's a huge part of that. You know, you got TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. You know, if Alex Highsmith was on any other team, he'd be that team's best-selling jersey. But because he's on the Steelers, he kind of gets pushed to the side as the redheaded stepchild. You know, but we still love him. We still love him. He just gets smaller portions during dinner. That's all it is.
That's fair.
But you know, Joey Porter Jr. coming in, like I was excited about JPJ coming in. I did not think he was going to be this good. I did not think he was going to be this good at all throughout his whole career.
Yeah, no one did.
Let alone off rip. Let alone off fucking rip. And the thing is with corner, like it's not necessarily like one of those things where like you study film and you're like, oh, now we're able to beat him. He's not that type of corner. He's shutting everybody down that he's playing against.
See,
he's just playing at an elite level.
I thought it was going to be more like a next year thing that we kind of start seeing flashes this year, and then next year we really start seeing it. But we saw flashes early, and then he kind of became that guy this year. So it was like all in 1 year that we saw it, and I thought it was going to be like a slow progression.
Me too.
Kind of thing.
Me too. And I didn't think he would be this good either. Like I thought he was going to be our number one corner, and I thought he was going to be serviceable, and I thought he was going to be good. He's playing elite. Like this isn't like me being a homer. This is just statistically, eye test, fundamentally, whatever you're doing, you watch JPJ play, and he's playing at an elite level. Yeah. And if he continues to do this, like, and mind you, he's been playing at an elite level without Minka behind him.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you get Minka behind him, dude? Who the fuck's throwing the ball on that side of the field?
Everyone, bro. That defense, weak.
Talking about weak defense, you know, on the Packers side of the ball, they allowed over 200 yards rushing. The Steelers achieved their second 300-plus yard game. I sent you a stat right before the Steelers played. What was that stat I sent you?
You're going to have to remind me, bro. I have
Zach Wilson has 2 300-yard passing games. Prior to this game, the Steelers had 1 300-yard passing game since Matt Canada and Zach Wilson both came into their current situation. The Steelers now are tied with Zach Wilson's passing yard games and 300 total yard games, and they achieved that through 200 yards on the ground. With that being said, on the Packers side of the ball, you know, they were shut down. Aaron Jones was held in check. A.J. Dillon, he had 70 yards on the ground, but he was saved by a 40-yard rush. Without that 40-yard rush, you know, on 8 carries, 30 yards.
Yeah.
Jordan Love was mediocre. They were dinking and dunking, but notice his completion percentage was just barely above 50. And he threw 2 picks. One of them wasn't his fault, and that was something cool too. I don't know if you heard this storyline, but Minka went up to Terrell Austin, the Steelers defensive coordinator, demanded for them to call a timeout, and they did. They listened to Minka because Minka's injured right now, so he's on the sideline talking to Terrell all game. They called the timeout, and Minka goes ahead. Minka called the last play of the game, which resulted in the game-sealing interception. So that was a cool storyline.
I did not know that. That's pretty dope.
Yeah. So Minka called that last play, which I don't know if you've seen the play, but they ran a dime.
I did watch it, yeah.
Yeah. So they ran a dime, put all the defensive backs on the end zone, and got a free pick from it. They weren't fucking around. Not going to play Tampa 2 or cover 4. Fuck it. We run and prevent 6, dude. And that's the right call. There's 3 seconds left on the clock.
Jaden Reed looks balling. He looks good now. He's starting to, as the weeks come on, he's looking like that number 1. Looking like that alpha type receiver in that offense. Christian Watson's mediocre at best. I mean, he's not really doing anything.
Targeted 7 times.
Yeah, but only 2 catches for 23 yards. I mean, but I think the storyline, it really is just like Jaden Reed.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, 5 targets, 5 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Good fantasy day, especially, but I think he's kind of slowly becoming that favorite for Jordan Love, especially down the field. So I'm excited.
If you're the Packers,
I'm excited to watch that chemistry develop, because I do hope it comes good, because I love watching that type of chemistry between quarterback and wide receiver, even though I hate the Packers. But that's neither here nor there.
If you're the Packers and you land into a top 10 pick situation, you go QB.
I don't think so.
What if Bo Nix is there?
I do love Bo Nix. But
you got to re-sign Jordan Love too, by the way.
I know. It's a cheap contract, though.
Is it?
Potentially.
Is it cheaper than Joshua Dobbs?
Probably not. Maybe. I don't know, because
I don't think so.
Because Jordan Love hasn't really been great either. So it's like you could probably get him for a cheap deal.
I don't know. I feel like Joshua Dobbs is kind of looked at as a Teddy Bridgewater right now. I feel like Jordan Love.
If I knew I could get Bo Nix, I'd probably draft him instead of resigning. That's kind of where I'm at, because I think Bo Nix is a better quarterback than Jordan Love. I think he's better for that organization, and I'm talking myself into it. I would lean heavily towards Bo Nix.
Me too,
personally. I think Jordan Love's a fine thing just to get him to keep him competitive in games, but long term, I don't think he's the solution.
I agree. I don't think there's any indication that he is the solution long term. The thing is that, even comparing him to a QB like Kenny Pickett, who I think is a very middle of the pack QB right now. Kenny Pickett at least brings that it factor, that fourth quarter drive. He has the most fourth quarter comebacks over the last 2 seasons. When Matthew Stafford was doing it, everybody was sucking his dick. Why the fuck is it when it's the black and gold brigade, there's a fucking issue?
Because fuck the Steelers.
Okay, you know what? Fuck you. On to the next game. Titans, Buccaneers.
I'm just talking shit at this point.
No, honestly, though, Kenny Pickett does have factors that make him relevant as a quarterback.
I would take Kenny Pickett over Jordan Love any day, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. And, that's an issue. That's an issue. If you're taking Kenny Pickett over your starting quarterback, that's an issue. And, I think Kenny Pickett could end up being better. It's just at this juncture.
Yeah. And there's a real possibility that they decide to re-sign Jordan Love. too as well.
Mhm.
You know, I would
They've
not be
invested so
surprised.
much into him. They've
Especially
invested so much time.
especially if they can get him on a cheap contract too, right? But they're
What
not
would
going
you
to get
give?
it. But they're not going to get him on as cheap of a contract as they could someone they draft, right?
Mhm.
Because at least Jordan Love is going to command at least probably 10 to 15 million.
I'm thinking 20 mil.
Yeah, I was being conservative with my estimate,
Yeah,
right?
I'm thinking the realistic market price for Jordan Love is like 23 mil.
And that's not crazy to think because
Mm-mm.
we see second contracts go like that all the time for quarterbacks, especially ones that
Yeah.
don't deserve it, right? We
Yep.
saw that with the Bears before they drafted Mitch Trubisky, right?
Yep.
Now I think it'd be smarter if the Packers do want to move on from Jordan Love that they draft like someone like Bo Nix, at least try to get to that spot. But I just don't think
Yep.
they're going to though. That's the problem.
100%. I agree.
All right, what'd you say the next game was?
Titans, Buccaneers. So
Ooh,
you and I both pegged the Titans to win this game.
yeah,
The Bucks ended up winning this game in a very, very styleable fashion.
very down.
Baker Mayfield for MVP?
No, not even in the conversation.
Not actually. If Ben was here, he'd be fighting tooth and nail for it.
You know, the lone bright spot with Baker Mayfield is that I'm currently, as it's projected to win the bet with Ben, that he's not going to throw for 31 or more touchdowns. So,
Yeah,
I'm
I think
pretty
I
happy
was
with
in
that.
on that bet too.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about that because he has, I think he's like 14-5 right now, 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions.
Yep, 21-43.
Baker is, as much as I hate him, he is a serviceable quarterback, right? He will keep you competitive and he will win you some games, but he's not going to win you playoff or the Super Bowl type games.
Yeah.
I think.
I
Right?
think
Like the Bucks
I think
might
if the
get
roster around him's good enough.
it is. The Bucks might get to the playoffs, but I think that's where it ends, like the first game.
You don't
Type
think
of
they
thing.
get out a wild card?
If they make it that far, I don't think they do. No. I
I agree.
I think they're good enough around the
Mhm.
quarterback, but I don't think they have that quarterback to take them far.
Yeah.
I think Baker's
Talk
just
about
that regular
quarterbacks in
season
this game.
quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I think he can get you to the playoffs. I don't know how many games he'll win you in the playoffs. The thing is with
Right.
Baker is I think he needs an elite running game with him to even have a chance.
Yeah, and the Bucks
Um,
have good talent, but they don't have that elite running game. Like Rashad White is a hell of a
Yeah.
running back. They just don't have that consistent elite play.
Mike Evans is a stud though.
He is. He's one of the most consistent wide receivers you can have in the game. He-
So undersung. It's so undersung how good Mike Evans is.
Mhm.
But
Kinda like
the
Brandon
thing is
Cooks in
with the
this sense.
Titans, yeah, kind of. Will Levis, he had a meh game. It was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
199 yards, no touchdowns and a pick.
Yep.
Got sacked 4 times. But I have a hard time giving this L to Levis. I think it's more the Tennessee running attack. On 16 attempts, 42 yards, averaging 2.6 yards per carry on a 15-yard long rush, and that was
Abysmal.
by Spears, who had 3 yards other than that one rush. So on 4 carries, if we take that rush out of the game, on 4 carries, he was averaging 0.75 yards per carry on top of Najee, Derrick Henry's Bama running backs, big bulky Bama running backs.
Yeah.
Sorry. But that actually brings their average without that long rush on that game to 1.76.
Right.
And I don't know if there's a quarterback in the NFL that could get over not even getting 2 yards per carry on your rushing attack,
Mm-hmm.
realistically. Because like Spears got a 15-yard rush, like okay, but that was it. That was his best carry, and that was his only like explosive play. Will Levis, connected to Kyle Phillips on 3 times on 5 attempts, 61 yards. Spears out of the backfield got 4 receptions on 5 calls, 42 yards. D Hop, 3 receptions, 27 yards. But the Bucs did a really good job of doing the most important thing you can do as a defense, and that's making them one-dimensional. And they did that. You don't want to force Will Levis to pass 40 times. You want to make it so Derrick Henry has 15, 16 rushes at least, and Spears has 10. You want to get the ball to your running backs like 25 times a game just so you get that tempo going. And the Titans failed to do that. They abandoned the run game too quickly, and it resulted in a blowout.
Yeah, screwed him over big time. I think
So,
if they run more,
with that
this
being
is
said,
a different game. But at the same time, like D Hop, 8 targets on 3 receptions.
gotta be better.
You gotta be better. But at the same time, like how many of those were catchable, right?
Mm-hmm. So, do you think Will Levis is the starter from here on out, though?
I think they're gonna keep him as a starter. Yeah, personally,
Me too.
I
like him a lot.
I think he's much better than Ryan Tannehill, and I think he's better than why am I forgetting his name right now? The other quarterback they have from Liberty.
Malik Willis.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's better than him. I think Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he was good for like the interim, right? He was good. He was good enough to win them games consistently. But then there comes a point where it's just not your time anymore, and I think that's kind of been this year for him.
Do you think Ryan Tannehill as a starter is over?
Probably, yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, I think so too.
At least I hope so.
You and me both. I don't want to watch any more Ryan Tannehill led football.
It's so terrible.
So, let's talk about another blowout that was not with 2 shit teams, but 2 highly competitive teams. 49ers, Jaguars, 34-3. I was not expecting a blowout. According to our predictions last week, you said 49ers win 38-24. I said Jags would win 27-14.
So if you had to pick one thing that went, what do you think the Jags went wrong? Essentially, it's like, why do you think the score is the way that it is? If you had to put it on like one or 2 things.
I mean, it doesn't help that, in the first quarter, they were already down 10 points by the end of it. Like turnovers were just too much this game. Or in the first half, they were already down 10 points, and then going right into the second half, they were down 17 points, and then their next 3 possessions that game after, 49ers come out, it's 20-3. It's Lawrence time. It's time to clutch up. And he throws a pick. And then they fumble. And then he throws another pick.
Yep.
I mean, like, honestly, Chase Young, he only had half a sack this game. But boy, was he.
If you watch that sack, that play, damn.
Buzzing.
That was a both Bosa and him.
Yep.
Right.
Just completely collapsed the pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Because Chase Young on that play forced him right, and Bosa was right there, getting off of getting off the tackle.
And Chase Young was coming off a stunt, so he's 1-on-1 with the guard, makes it so the interior defensive lineman goes ahead and cuts it down, gets the tackle. He goes ahead and attacks that 4 gap, slips on in there, and he's put exactly as you said. The tackle is supposed to set the edge, which he did a good job of doing. Young goes ahead and cuts through and has to beat the double team, and he goes ahead and hits a chop, gets right through, rips through, and now it's just money all day. And you got Bosa coming off the other edge, just collapsing in, and it was beautiful. That's exactly what you want to see. And you've seen that multiple times throughout the game. It seemed like Trevor Lawrence was just under pressure all game long.
He could not get comfortable.
No, and
this is like,
honestly, I think it falls on their offensive line. All 3 losses of this season, I feel like falls on their offensive line.
Yeah, because like in their losses, you see their offensive line just kind of collapse,
give up
almost. Right? They can't keep
give up.
Yeah, they can't keep a clean pocket. They don't give him enough time to throw.
Do you think the Jaguars are a real team come playoff time?
I don't think they're a threat, but I think they make the playoffs. I don't think they're a team we really have to worry about, but they'll be there.
Do they get a wild card win?
Depends who they play.
AFC North team.
Let me look up the current picture.
So the current picture is...
Oh, you got it?
Off the back of my hand, I think it's Chiefs get the bye. Ravens at number 2. Dolphins. And then Jags. And then you have Steelers, Browns, and it's not the Bengals right now, but I think it's Texans. Yep.
No, you had it right. The Chiefs, Ravens, Jags, Dolphins, Steelers, Browns, Texans. That's how it stands currently.
Yep.
So that would mean that the Jags would play the Browns. Right? No.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're
third seed against 6.
Oh yeah, because only one team's playoff is the bye week.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Ravens would be playing against the Texans. Jags would be playing against the Browns, and Steelers would be playing against Dolphins.
Yep.
That's what AFC wildcard weekend would look like.
At this point, I'm not confident the Jags could beat the Browns, but it could be another ugly victory for the Browns, right? It could be a potential blowout.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and hop into that game now?
Yeah.
So, I think that's about where the Jags are. Probably a divisional team. I don't think they make it past the divisional.
At best. That's where I think, at least.
But yeah, Browns, Ravens. And was this your game of the week?
Bro, this was so exciting. I was just, because we were talking about this before, and I was just having between this game and then the Bills game last night, because that was also a hell of a game. We'll talk about that more later. But the Browns-Ravens game kind of surprised me a lot. I did not expect the Browns to play like this against a tough Ravens defense and a tough Ravens offense. I thought it was going to be... I think we both predicted the Ravens to win this game.
Yep, we both did.
And Deshaun Watson didn't play great. Lamar Jackson played mediocre at best. Those 2 interceptions really hurt him. And then he, of course...
Deshaun Watson played really fucking good. His stat line doesn't reflect it nearly as well. But, on the eye test, coming back to that game, Deshaun Watson looked fucking elite.
Right. And I wasn't going to mention that yet, but he did look really good. And then the Ravens kind of seemed to fall apart late in the game when it really mattered most and where they really needed those drivers the most. Because that's when they had the interception and the blocked field goal. And then in the fourth quarter, you had 2 punts. You're not going to win it like that.
Well, something else is, time of possession. The Browns possessed the ball for 34 minutes and 15 seconds, and that's the difference in this game. Like
Yep.
why I said Deshaun Watson was playing elite, it wasn't just necessarily the throws he was making. It wasn't how he scrambled out of the pocket and was picking up extra yardage on dead plays. It was how he managed the game, how he was able to make audible calls at the line. 213 yards, yeah, whatever. He only averaged 6.3 yards per attempt. But against the Ravens defense, you take what you can get. And if you can get first downs, you take them. You don't need to get risky. And Deshaun Watson knew that. And he took advantage of that and took the yardage that they were willing to give him. And they just happened to give him a little bit too much, and they weren't able to get off the field early enough.
It's unfortunate.
Jerome Ford went out and had himself a field day, averaging 6.3 yards per carry on 107 yards, 17 attempts, 28-yard longest rush. Amari Cooper is proving that he is the legit target, and David Njoku literally ran through another man on one play. I don't know if you've seen that highlight, but just completely just fucking
demolished him. Yep.
Demolished him, just fucking took care of business. Like, when you're looking at these like stats, I want you to look at this. Deshaun Watson, well, the Browns, they had 30 or 71 touches of the ball. The Ravens, they only had 47.
Yeah.
Like almost double the touches on the ball. Just short, consistent, tiring out the defense. Like we were talking about the Steelers earlier. You grind down a team, you're going to get that win. It's just how it happens a lot of the time. And the Ravens are a good enough team where they almost overcame that. But they just weren't able to because of those punts late in the game.
Yeah, those 2 punts in the fourth quarter really killed them, especially really just that last punt. When they held the ball for 3.5 minutes, and that just completely killed it. And then they let the Browns drive for almost 5 minutes to kick the game-winning field goal.
And Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, like, he had an elite game. What he was able to do this past, like, against the Ravens, he had half a sack, but he had 2 tackles for a loss, a pass deflection, QB hit, 7 tackles, and like also something else when you're watching the all 22, it's just like where he was covering the zone was just like dominant. He went and had 4 solo tackles, 7 total tackles. He was a big portion of that Browns team. Like if I think Owusu-Koramoah was the difference maker for this team, and I think if he wasn't playing, they wouldn't have won. I think he was the difference maker.
So where do you project the Browns to finish?
Right? In the division or AFC?
Just like overall, right? Do you think they just get to the division, the wild card round, and lose out, or?
I think the Browns are a team that could go all the way. Is their ceiling?
Oh, okay.
I think every AFC North team, their ceiling is Super Bowl, and I think it's realistic because they're just. The AFC North's tough, man.
The way they're playing right now, I don't disagree.
I would be very surprised if the Super Bowl did not hold a team from the AFC North this season. And I'm willing to say over the Chiefs.
I could see it because the Chiefs have been playing. We'll get into that game also a little bit later. Well, actually, they didn't play this week, so never mind. But like, the Chiefs have been a weird team this week or this year, where it kind of seems like they've been playing down to their opponent, but they also don't have the weapons that they used to, so it's a completely different offense than we're used to, right? Because they don't have that field stretcher like they had with Tyreek Hill.
Right.
They have Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce where they can dump over the middle, right? They have a little bit of Justin Ross, but they don't have that legitimate downfield threat. So I get the argument where they could beat the Chiefs, and I would not be surprised if they did. Or any team from the AFC North did, for that matter.
Yeah, I think realistically, like, my odds right now for who's going to be in the Super Bowl on the AFC side goes in this order. I hate to say it. Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns, Chiefs, Dolphins. I think that's the order that I'm looking at.
See, I disagree a little bit. I think the Chiefs are still one until they prove me otherwise, personally. And then I would put the Ravens, and then the Dolphins, and then the Bengals, and then the Steelers. Kind
So
of where I'm at.
here's my issue with the Chiefs, right? They aren't playing good ball right now. They're
No, they're
getting
definitely not.
wins. They're getting wins, but it's not good wins. Like,
They're playing well enough.
like it's not like where it's like with the Steelers, for example. Like when the Steelers beat a team, you're like, okay, the Steelers just whooped on a team. They only beat them by one score, but it was a dominant victory because they just grinded the team down. With the Chiefs, it's just like, one possession difference, and that's the game. Like with the Steelers, it's like there wasn't a chance that team was going to score. With the Chiefs, it's like the Chiefs got kind of lucky. Like games that the Chiefs got lucky on this season. Chiefs got lucky against the Jaguars. Chiefs got lucky against the Jets. Chiefs got lucky against the Vikings. Chiefs got lucky against the Dolphins.
But I think also that's
If-
part of our. I think also part of that is like our expectations going into the season, right? Because you have like at the beginning of the season, we had completely different expectations with the Chiefs versus the Steelers, right?
Sure.
So the Chiefs are just meeting those expectations, whereas the Steelers are going above those expectations. So for me, part of that is just like those feelings of where it's like, oh, those are just okay with the Chiefs, and those are really good for the Steelers, is because of those preseason expectations.
So I'm not basing it off of that. I'm basing it off of how they won these games, the style that they won these games. Like they're not. I'm not asking them to blow teams out, but that's why I brought up the Steelers as an example, because the Steelers beat a lot of teams by one possession or one score. But we are not sitting here saying that the Steelers barely won the game. We're sitting here saying the Steelers dominated the game. We're sitting here saying that the Steelers grinded a team out. We're sitting there saying how good the Steelers defense is for keeping them alive in these games. Like that's the discussion we're having with the Steelers. And sure, the expectations were different. But with the Chiefs, it's not like they're not winning these dominant victories. They're not dominant.
No,
right now.
not
They're
like
just
you
not.
used to see. Yeah.
Like, I think the Steelers are more dominant than the Chiefs. I just do. Like, and the thing is that's like, okay, the Jags, a lot of people were pissed about the calls for the Jags games. Let me just say it how it is. A lot of people were pissed about the Jags game. A lot of people were really pissed off about the fucking Jets game. And because remember, Zach Wilson was having a renaissance that game and started cooking up and barely lost. A lot of people were pissed about the Vikings game, and a lot of people like the thing is with the Dolphins is they came out kind of out of tune, but they still almost pulled it back. The Chiefs didn't score in the second half, and sure, their defense held the Dolphins down. Sure, but I don't think that was because the Chiefs defense was so good. I think that's just because the Dolphins offense was coming on an off note. And, there is a realistic possibility where those games swing one way. And it's not just like me being like, oh, hypothetically, they swing one way. Like you watch these games and they easily could have swung the other way. Comparatively to the Steelers, where it's like, no, the Steelers just had control. The Steelers had control of the game and they put the dagger in. It doesn't matter if it was by 1 point or if it was by 10 points. The Steelers just put the dagger in and twisted. The Chiefs, they're putting the dagger in. They're not twisting right now. Like there's a realistic possibility that the Chiefs had 6 losses this season at this point. There's a realistic chance that the Chiefs are a 3-win team because they aren't beating teams in a dominant fashion. And that's what scares me come playoff time. Like the Chiefs just aren't. And it's not because of Patrick Mahomes. It's not because of Travis Kelce. It's because like the rest of their offense, their defense is actually playing up to snuff, but it's just
Their
like
defense is
they're
very good.
They're good. They're not. I wouldn't say that they're top 10 right now. I would say that they're top 15. They're above average. They're good. I'd probably rank them about 13th
Middle
in
pack.
the NFL.
Yeah, middle
Yeah,
pack. Basically.
and the thing is, the Chiefs' offensive line and the Chiefs' wide receiver core is going to limit them, and it's going to become prevalent, especially against teams that are able to cover down. Like teams like the Lions, which they got held down to 20 points. Teams like the Jets. The Jets like held them down. They just barely squeaked out a win. Teams like the Broncos that somehow locked them down because they recognized cover down Travis Kelce and we win the game. They took care of that, and look at what happened. Teams like the Dolphins, where I don't think they beat the Dolphins if they meet them in the playoffs. Do you?
I think they could, yeah. I'd be willing to put
which
money
team
on
would
it.
you pick?
Probably
Would
the
you pick?
Chiefs. Probably the Chiefs.
I would pick Dolphins. So that's where our opinion is different. Okay. But we got a lot of games to prove it. And I might bite my tongue and I might say I'm wrong. But they got the Eagles. They got a tough Raiders defense to play against. And this is a trap game that I wouldn't be surprised to see the Raiders win. They got Packers should be able to take care of business.
Yeah,
Bills are visiting the Chiefs. That's another perfect game.
They have some prove it games. Where they come playoff time, or like how we think they'll be playoff time, right? Is going to come down to like these last 4 or 5 games where they are prove it games, especially.
And like it also helps that their division hasn't been playing well this season. Like the AFC North, the reason that like we're glamoring and shit so much about them is because they've been playing such good ball all around. And the AFC South,
every team is dangerous in that division.
Yeah. The AFC South, like the Jaguars, Texans, Colts, like they're all pretty tough teams. But I think the West and the East like are not scary divisions, not nearly to the degree as like the North and the South respectively.
Right.
And I think the Chiefs benefit a lot from that. I don't think the Chiefs make it out of the divisional round this year, man. I don't. I can't see it happening. And I might be wrong.
I think
doubt Patrick Mahomes and you eat your words. But
I think they do, and that's the best case scenario. I think they probably lose in the title game, and I think I think they get to divisional round. That's it. Personally, I think that's their last win in the playoffs. But I mean, they could also slip up, and that could be their second game, right? They could be a wild card team, come playoff time.
So that actually brings me to my next point, which that is going to be. Let me pull it up. Why am I not loading? Okay, bro. Why is it not loading? I'm actually about to tweet. What the fuck? Oh my god. Hello. I'm refreshing the page. Oh my god, this is embarrassing.
Oh, you're good.
I'm about to cry.
All right. You want me to go?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Fucking New Orleans, Minnesota. We already talked about this game. Why is everything fucking up right now?
Yeah, so
we're gonna have to cut this because I don't know why my shit's just fucking up right now.
Falcons, Cardinals.
Thank you. Get us back on track. Save me. I'm drowning.
I got you. Don't worry. This is all gonna be in the final. Be fine.
No.
Cardinals surprisingly won 25
predicted
to 23.
against them.
I didn't think they played like that. I didn't think Kyler Murray did okay in his comeback game. 19 of 32 for 249 yards and an interception. But what kind of
Yep.
saved them on the ground was their run game, where they had a combined total of 26 rushes for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Mhm.
Trey McBride balled out on the receiving side of the ball for the Cardinals. 8 catches, 131 yards on 9 targets.
Mhm.
Like a lot of
Brown
people
had
were
4
a lot
targets,
of
by the way.
a lot of people were saying Marquise Brown would be the go-to guy for him. One
Mhm.
one reception, 28 yards and four targets. Do you
So
think
let
that
me
was a
ask you
fluke?
this.
Do you think that was a fluke, or do you think that's kind of like the trend going forward?
I could see the Cardinals winning 4 or 5 games this year
Mm-hmm.
in the last stretch. I think it's realistic to say that they go 500 in the last few games.
Mhm.
I don't think that they're much higher than that.
I would agree.
The question I want to ask you is,
Hmm.
do you think that they win this game if Joshua Dobbs is their quarterback?
I do, because I think Joshua Dobbs is that guy,
Me too.
and he is.
Mhm.
I think he has proven to be a good quarterback. While he didn't have the best record with the Cardinals, I still think he is a good quarterback, and he's proven it through the air and on the ground with the weapons that
Yeah.
he has. Like, there's only so much you can do. Like, the Cardinals' offense is really not that good, and they don't have the best
Yeah.
weapons. So like, there's only so
And
much
Kyler Murray's playing for his life.
right, so much you can do as a quarterback with the weapons that you have, and I think Joshua Dobbs made the most of it, and I think Kyler Murray made the best of it with the weapons that he had in that game this past week,
Yep.
right? So I think they still win it. I still think it's possible. But I just thought the Falcons were going to win it.
Yeah. I did too. The Falcons are a good team, and I wasn't expecting Taylor Heineke to shit the bed like that. But like,
Yeah, I mean,
here's what I mean by Kyler Murray.
they only passed 21 times for the Falcons. Like, that's bonkers.
Yeah.
Me. But rushed it
Yeah,
41
but
times.
I mean, like, they were. I mean, like, if Taylor Heineke's my quarterback, the Falcons had control of this game for like most of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They were, all the way up till towards the end of the third quarter. That's when the switch started to flip and the Cardinals started to come alive. But up to that point, it was, like, Atlanta was up 17-15. It was a tight game all the way through, but it's just like Atlanta kind of had control and they were just kind of taking care of business. And then Arizona went up and got up to 22-17. Falcons come back. It's 23-22. They're up by 1 point.
Yeah.
There's only 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then Kyler Murray proved that he should be starting for this Cardinals offense. And I guess what I mean by Kyler Murray is fighting for his life is he needs to get the Cardinals to enough wins where they're not picking in the top 10, or else he's getting replaced.
You think so after that contract? Because that's a lot of dead money. That's a lot of money.
I think if he loses the rest of the games, they have to.
Or do you think they just draft like a Marvin Harrison to give him another legit weapon? It's like, which way do you go? Do you stick with the quarterback you just paid millions upon millions of dollars to? That's an expensive ass contract just to let go, or do you go out and get him another legit weapon that's your certified stud?
Like, here's the thing though, like, Kyler Murray doesn't have one 4,000 plus yard season.
Right.
He only has 2-to-1 TD ratio seasons, 26-12 and 24-10, so not even ideal. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a season where he started the full season and doesn't have double-digit picks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what tells me that Kyler Murray is that guy? Like, in 2020, the asterisk there obviously is he almost had 5,000 yards from scrimmage, and he had 11 touchdowns on the ground, but he also had 5 fumbles. And then in 2021, he had 12 fumbles. So like, I mean, like, he's kind of a turnover machine.
Yeah.
In total throughout his career, he has 84 touchdowns and he has 86 or 66 turnovers. I mean, like, I think the contract was a stupid mistake. And I don't know. At what point do you cut your losses and just say, we fucked up and we move on? Because you're in a division with San Francisco. Is Kyler
Yeah.
Murray good enough to lead you past San Francisco? Is Kyler Murray good enough to lead you past Seattle? Is Kyler Murray good enough to lead you past the Kirk Cousins-led LA Rams?
Rams and Seahawks, yes. 49ers, no.
Do you think that they could see playoff contention with Kyler?
No, not unless they get like another legit weapon. Honestly, I think that's what they're missing, really. And their receiving core looks sad and tired because they got Trey McBride, I think, who's a stud at tight end. But then they need another legit wide receiver. And
Do you
I
think
don't think
Marvin
they have
Harrison
that.
would? Do you think Marvin Harrison would fix that?
I think
Like
he could.
single-handedly.
I think he could.
I
We
think.
saw that. We saw that a little bit with D Hop there.
Mhm.
So like I
That's
think
true.
Marvin Harrison could fix that, at least part of it for the Cardinals. But then also that comes down to a little bit of play calling. So how much do you trust the coaches? And I'm not sure I have that much faith in the coaches right now. But I think a start would be to get another legit weapon like Marvin Harrison. And
Yeah.
then I think that becomes a little bit more of a legit conversation of, are the Cardinals for real? Is Kyler Murray that good? Can he be that guy?
So do you think? Let's say this scenario plays out.
Mhm.
Cardinals go get Marvin Harrison. Kyler has to stay healthy all next season, right? Like, he can't
Has to.
get injured. Like,
Has
he
to.
has to stay healthy. And they go get Marvin Harrison. Kyler Murray goes ahead and goes out. And what happens if Kyler does not play up to the level? What happens then?
Honestly, like
Or let's say he does get injured. Even in the scenario he gets injured. What
because
happens
of how
then? Do you
because of
stick
how
with
much
them?
money they paid him. Unless the team's willing a significant amount, I don't think they're getting rid of him.
I mean,
Like they might wait till like the third year of his deal. I
yeah,
think is
but
the
like,
best case.
what if they made a trade where the team takes the access cap space and it's a cheaper trade because of it? So like they get a second in return and trade off Kyler Murray.
Then it becomes like a hard to say no at that point.
Yeah.
Right. But that's also assuming a team's willing to do that, which they're probably not.
Mhm.
But I mean, if I was the Cardinals, I'd probably say yes. I'm looking up his
I probably would
contract
too.
right now. So let's see.
So
he signed through 2028 with the Cardinals.
Yep. And it's front loaded, correct?
Yup.
And mostly
Yes.
guaranteed.
So this year he only counts for 7% of the cap. Next year, the next 3 years, 2024, 2025, and 2026, he counts for at least 16%. So 19% next year, 2024.
At most 16%, right?
No. So 19% 2024, 16% 2025, 18% 2026. Right? So if they cut
I
him
thought a
or
lot of
trade
that was
him,
this year.
no, yeah, if there's no matter what you do within the next 3 years, there's a lot of dead money involved. right? So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like you'd be hard pressed to cut him or trade him or anything like that without assuming a lot of that responsibility for that contract. So I think at worst we
Yeah.
see a new Cardinals quarterback in 2 years, potentially, because that's when it gets a little low. But regardless, like they're not in a good spot with that contract that they signed. It was like you said earlier, it was a stupid contract.
Yeah.
It was not a good contract from the sign, and he was not the quarterback for it, essentially.
It's the type of contract that you'd make on Madden. It's not an IRL contract.
Yeah,
It never should have been.
yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Like I don't think he did enough to deserve that contract. Sure, he was good and he played well at times, but like that kind of mega money contract he didn't really deserve. But that's kind of the evolution of the quarterback position that we've seen with contracts, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've just seen them get more and more money, even though they don't deserve it. But that's just the nature of the business, essentially, at this point.
100%.
You know, like
Talk about nature of the business.
What's his face with the Texans? Like 4 years ago, that got that mega contract. He played for the Broncos and then went to the Texans.
Travis Steedman?
Was it?
Trevor Steedman?
Was it him? Oh gosh, I'm gonna flip off. I don't remember. I gotta know this name. Let me look it up. Because he got a mega contract with the Texans and played like absolute garbage. Brock Osweiler. Brock Osweiler.
Yep.
Yeah, because he played really good for the Broncos that 1 year and then got a hella contract back in 2016.
Yeah.
And it was absolute dog
Brian
water.
Hoyer was in a similar position too.
Yep. Yep.
But want to talk about mediocre quarterbacks that had a renaissance in their career?
I love mediocre quarterbacks.
Jared Goff leads the Lions to 7-2 over the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't think anybody was expecting the Chargers to be this bad.
On a last-second field goal, too, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you pay a quarterback as much as the Chargers are paying him, like you don't expect a 4-5 record, right?
Correct.
Because they're paying.
But also,
him
I don't think it's Herbert's fault.
Not entirely, no.
Like,
not entirely, no.
Herbert's been playing pretty well. You know, like he's 2,349 yards. He's projected to have over 4,000 yards this season, about 4,500. You know, he's projected to have about 35 touchdowns and 10 picks.
Yeah, which is good. Right, good, not bad, great, but it's good. And it's kind of what you pay a quarterback for. So then let me ask you this. Then.
I think.
Let me ask you this then. Where do you think their weakness lies? Why do you think they're 4-5, if not because of Justin Herbert?
I mean, like the coaching.
You think that's their biggest downfall right now?
Dude, yeah, fuck yeah, it is. So they have 5 losses this season.
Yep.
Did you know that 4 out of those 5 losses were decided by 3 points or less?
I did.
Did you know that all 4 of those games they had an option to go for a field goal, but decided to go for it on 4th down and field goal range and did not get it?
I did not know that part. That's kind of wild. Because like in a game like the NFL, you go for those field goals, right? Especially when you're well within range. Because every point matters, as been proven. Like especially for the Chargers this year.
Yeah, and you know, like their defense leaves some to be desired too. You know, like it's hard for, you know, like the Chargers lose to the Dolphins 36-34. You can't sit there and have Justin Herbert. Like, you can't put the blame on Justin Herbert. You know, it doesn't help that the defense let up 36 points. Titans, he's
playing up to his contract right now, I think.
I agree. I don't think the issue in LA is Herbert at all. I mean, like, you could sit there and say, oh, he could play a little bit, he could play better. And you said he's playing good, not great. I think that he's playing great. But I think I think
past
the
game
issue isn't Herbert.
this past game against the Lions, he played great because he had 323 yards, 4 touchdowns, and interception.
Yeah.
Like that's
And,
amazing.
like,
That's elite level play right there.
yeah. And, let's run down the stat line for the whole season. Let's start week 1. Miami, 229, touchdown, no pick. Really good game, 23 for 33 on completion, by the way. Titans lost in overtime, 27-41, 305, 2 touchdowns, no pick. I think that's a great game, don't you?
Yeah.
Vikings, they go ahead and win 28-24, 40 for 47, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, an elite performance. Go over to the Raiders, or meet the Raiders at home, 13-24, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 167 yards. He managed the game, got taken care of, won the game. That's what mattered. Yeah, he managed the game, got it done. And sometimes as a great quarterback, that's your job. It's just to manage the game, Not every game is going to be 300 plus yards. It's just not. Cowboys, 22 for 37, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Solid performance. He's not getting sacked a lot either. He's only been sacked 20 times throughout the season. So he's only averaging getting sacked twice per game. And with 2 outliers being against the Chiefs and the Jets, being 10 of those sacks combined, we take those 2 games out, he's only averaging a sack and a half per game,
Right.
So, against the Cowboys, 22-37, 227, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, solid game. Against the Chiefs, 17-30, 259, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, got sacked 5 times. You can put the blame on Justin Herbert on that game, but, we move on from that. To the Bears, 30-13, 31-40, 298 yards, 3 touchdowns, put on a really good game, a great game even, almost 300
Amazing
yards.
game.
Can't doubt that. Yep. Against the Jets, he put up 27-6, 16-30, 136 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, but as a win, he managed the game. He got sacked 5 times. Definitely didn't help his case. And then against the Lions, as you just said, he had another great game. So, looking through his season, like, he has really great games. It's just you can't put that much pressure on your quarterback to carry all these games and not give him anything else.
Yeah, and with the Herbert hate that you kind of see a lot of the times, I think a lot of it has to do with the contract he got. Because a lot of people like, if you're getting paid this much money, you should be winning us most of the games, if not all of them. And realistically, what a lot of people don't realize or think about is it's not just the quarterback, right? A lot has to do with the defense, and a lot of it has to do with the play calling too as well.
He's only taking up 15 to 20% of his cap space for his team.
Yeah,
he needs the other
and a lot of people don't think about
70% or 80% to pick up the rest.
And a lot of people don't think about that, right? Like, play calling has to do a lot with it. We were talking about this a little bit with the Jets. Like, that's why Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook are not performing like we thought they would. Because there's been several times where we've seen Breece Hall get 9 carries and Dalvin Cook get 7 carries or 5 carries, right? Especially in those close games. Like, play calling matters. And they have not had good play calling. I wouldn't really call it mediocre play calling. Like, it's below average.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Bad to below average. It's not good. You can't expect to win games like that, and you can't blame the quarterback for those losses all the time. Eventually, you have to blame the coaching staff and the play calling.
Yep,
and I don't think people, not really players, are willing to say that because of how much money Justin Herbert is getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's easy to have the quarterback be your scapegoat, but at the end of the day, I think this is one of the few times that a losing team is not the quarterback's fault at all. It almost feels like Phillip Rivers Part 2 in LA.
Which is unfortunate because I think Justin Herbert is a phenomenal quarterback.
Imagine Justin Herbert was on the Vikings.
Deadly.
Imagine if Justin Herbert was on the Jets.
even better. I think.
Imagine Justin Herbert was on the Commanders.
Amazing. I would love him to be on the Patriots, in fact.
And I got one last team for you. Imagine
What's that?
Justin Herbert was on the 49ers.
Mm.
He's better than Brock Purdy. Don't even be
I-
fucking
I-
around with me right now.
I'll give you that one. I just love Brock Purdy, so it's like it's hard for me to admit that, right?
That's fair. But
It's just hard for me.
imagine.
No, I get it because that team would probably be undefeated this year.
Yeah.
But I just love Brock Purdy and his story and everything like that. So it's hard for me to admit that that'd be better. That's all.
100%. So, talking about teams that need to be better. Giants get blown out by Dallas.
Yo.
Danny DeVito. I mean, wait. Not
Did you see
Danny.
that? Did you see that meme I shared earlier about the Cowboys?
No. Which one?
Hold on, I'll bring it up. One sec. You keep talking.
I'll get the stat breakdown going. Tommy DeVito actually, had a very interesting game. Sacked 5 times, 14 to 27 on completion. Only had 86 yards and 2 TDs, 1 interception. So, like, it seems like he's playing the playbook correctly. And it seems similar to what Danny Dimes has been doing this season. He also had 41 yards on the ground. His yards weren't to be desired, but his touchdown to interception ratio was fine. Got sacked a couple too many times. But they were made to be one dimensional pretty early on. Saquon Barkley, 13 carries, 66 yards. Dak Prescott just had the game of his career.
All right. So the what were you saying?
Can we stop with the Dak Prescott hate yet?
Probably not, honestly. But the meme I was talking about is Mike McCarthy holding the Super Bowl trophy with Dak Prescott behind him, saying,
Oh, yeah.
Dallas fans after being the
Dallas
2-7
fans after
Giants."
being 2-7 Giants. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that actually.
The Dak Prescott's hate's not going to go. Probably make it to the Super Bowl at least. Honestly,
You think it's
Like-
Super Bowl or bust for Dak?
to get rid of the hate. But even then, I think the people are going to still madly hate him, and I think it's the fun thing to hate the Cowboys in general, right?
That's
I
true.
think it's like the fun and popular thing to do, is just to hate them. So I think at this point, honestly, regardless of what the Cowboys do, people are going to hate them and shit on them. So like, there might be just nothing that they can do, but I think it's to quiet a lot of people down. They're going to have to make it to Super Bowl.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. I don't know, man. Like, do you think that they're a Super Bowl team?
I think they have the pieces to get there, right? Because they're very
That's true.
talented on offense and very talented on defense. So it's like they have the pieces, but can they put together at the right moments?
Mhm.
And I'm not confident that they can.
Neither am I. Like, I think you hit it right on the head. They have the pieces. They could do it, especially with the emergence of Rico this past week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a big deal. It's we were high on Deuce Vaughn coming into the season, but Rico
Yeah.
seems to be picking up that backup running back role behind Tony Pollard.
And he's been
And-
phenomenal.
Yeah, and like, now we're kind of looking at the Cowboys. They have a really good 1-2 punch. They got Dak playing at a high level. They have that scary fucking defense.
Yep.
After this game, I don't know. I'm feeling really confident about the Cowboys. I think they're at least a championship team, though. Not just because they beat the Giants, but because of their resume and what they've done this season.
I think they can get to the championship game, but ultimately, I think they're going to lose again. I think they lose in the title game. I kind of
I don't think they can pass the 49ers or the Eagles.
no, and that's going to be that downfall.
Yeah.
Right. Like if they have to play one of them, I think they lose that game. But also, the Eagles and 49ers at times have not looked great, not looked like championship
Yeah.
teams. But it's also, I mean, we're also at the halfway point of the season, right? So there's still a lot of football to play.
That's true.
But at the same time, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys come out on top in the title game and make it to the Super Bowl finally. But to shut up all the haters,
Yep.
or at least shut up part of them, some of them, the Cowboys are going to have to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Otherwise, people
You and
will
I.
not,
Go ahead. Sorry.
otherwise people will not stop talking and be like, "Oh, Dak sucks," even if they make it to the Saturday game. You know, like, "Oh, Cowboys are trash, always trash," blah blah blah. It's gonna be the same stuff.
100%. You and I fell behind a little bit on this. We both predicted Falcons were going to win. Cards won. We both predicted Lions were going to win. Lions won. We both predicted Cowboys were going to win. Cowboys won. And that leads us into our next matchup. The Washington Commanders.
Thank you.
Commanders. Same thing. At Seattle. You predicted Seattle was going to win 28-24. I predicted the Commies were going to win 27-23.
Oh, thank God I was right.
Yeah, and pretty close score line. We almost hit the score right on the head, both ways.
Yeah. Sam Howell, though, on the Commander side, I was looking like that guy for them.
Yeah, it's not Sam Howell's fault that they lost that game.
No, I mean, he played phenomenal. He played really well. He 29 of 44, 312 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Like, no interceptions. Had one fumble though, but like, he's looking like he's looking like their guy at quarterback.
Yeah,
and I'm glad I was kind of right on him because I thought he was that good. I thought he was pro ready. I thought he was going to be good when he got the, and he has been very good. Not great, not elite yet, but I think he has been good. Brian Robinson
he's showing flashes.
Yeah, Brad Robinson had himself a day. Not really in the running, but in the receiving work. 6 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. 100%. And then he had 8 carries for 38 yards. So they didn't run the ball a whole lot. They only ran a total of 14 times. But man, did he get really all the work, honestly, in the receiving side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and then
I think if the Commanders run the ball like 15 more times this game, this could have been a different story.
Yeah.
And I think that this was a huge game for Geno. This was really a tempo game where Geno needed to get back on track, and he did. He did that. He got right back on track and was doing what he needed to do to get the win.
Geno was 31 of 47, 369, and 2 touchdowns. But they also ran 26 times, which I kind of think was a difference maker for them.
100%. I think both defenses played well this game.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the thing is, like you can't get out tempoed like that and expect to win a football game.
The Commanders remind me a lot, weirdly enough, of the Vikings from a couple years back. Yep. When the Vikings made it to the playoffs, because the Vikings would win they were a mediocre team, but would win a lot of close games. The Commanders are a mediocre to good team, but lose a lot of those close games.
Yep.
So they kind of remind me in that sense.
And they have fantasy relevance like that Vikings team did.
Yeah.
It was like, you wanted to start players on that team. It's just, you being a fan of them kind of sucked because it was like, man, like we shouldn't be winning all these games. And as a Commanders fan, you're like, we should be winning more of these games,
Exactly. So it's like, it's weird. But on the Seahawks side,
let me ask you a question.
You had Kenneth Walker, who did well, 19 carries, 63 yards. not great, but well enough. You know, he got you some points. DK Metcalf
Mhm.
had himself a game, seven receptions, 98 yards. Ty Lockett, 8 catches, 92 yards and a touchdown. Where Kenneth Walker made up for his fantasy night. He had one catch for 64 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah,
That kind of
and
exploded
on
him.
the ground he already had 63 yards on the ground, so he's worth what, 12, 13, 19, almost 20 points.
Yep, exactly.
Not bad, not too bad.
What was your question going to be though?
So between the Vikings, the 2021 Vikings versus this season's Commanders, would you rather be a fan and be living in blissful ignorance knowing that your team's not that good but their record's that good, or would you rather be just in this stubborn despair?
Give me that bliss. Give me that bliss,
100%.
bro. That bliss.
Well, speaking of stubborn despair,
hmm
let's go ahead and move on to the Jets Raiders game. So you and I both predicted that the Jets were going to win 27-17 by you, 2017 by me.
hmm
What you thinking about this game? Obviously, Jets lost 16-12 Raiders.
Kind of surprised. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't.
mean-
I didn't think the Raiders had it in them, but also, I mean, it's a Zach Wilson led Jets, so like you don't really know what you're gonna get at any given
Zach
time.
Wilson didn't play that bad.
No, he didn't. But like from that Jets team as a
Yeah.
whole, you don't really know what you're gonna get. And then
But,
that Raiders team played just well enough to win.
Yeah, and I mean that Raiders offense only had one touchdown that game, and who was it to?
You tell me.
Oh, Mike Mayer.
Oh, Michael Mayer.
And you know who was starting him in fantasy this week?
The tight end you stole from me, basically.
Hey, I didn't steal
That's
him.
crazy. You did. You stole him from me.
How? He's on my team.
Because I was trying to pick him up right after.
I already did it.
I had it right there, and then he was gone. I was so sad.
Yeah, you got the error message already
Yep.
picked up.
I did. I was so sad, dude. Because I think
I
we were on
remember
the,
we were
I
live.
think, I think we were still in the group call at the time. I was like, "Fuck."
You said,
Us.
who picked him up? And I started giggling, and you're like, Shane, did you pick up Michael Mayer? And I was like, yeah, I fucking did.
I was so mad because I was like, he didn't get drafted. He didn't get drafted. I win. Nope.
Then you see Shifty Eye Fucker Shane over in the corner.
I did not win indeed. I was so sad, dude.
Yeah.
Because Michael Mayer's a stud. He's gonna be.
I knew he was
going
going to be good.
He's gonna be good.
If Michael Mayer is available in your fantasy league, by the way,
Pick him
I would
up.
go get him.
Yeah.
I think he's only going to be going up from this point. You know, he only had 3 receptions for 19 yards, but he had that touchdown. I don't think 19 yards is reflective of what his actual value is going to be consistently week in, week out. I wouldn't be surprised if he was a 40 to 60 yard receiver at tight end and a touchdown every 2 games, so half a touchdown a game. You know, I think he's realistically an 8-point safe start, and I think on his boom weeks he could be 16 points.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with not really the quarterback play, but more so the safe play calling that they're kind of doing right now with the Aiden O'Connell as quarterback.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of really his downfall right now, where it's like if you want to trade for him or you can pick him up, because a lot of the trade deadlines are past now. But if your trade deadline is not yet, then like buy low. It's your perfect chance to buy low on him, because I think it's just only going to keep going up from here. And then come time for next offseason, especially, his price is going to be high because people are going to be like, well, what if all this news is coming out about him that he's yada yada? His price is only going to keep going up, I think, from here.
Yeah. Did you see Zach Wilson had that no look pass, by the way?
It was pretty sick.
That's
It was
kinda
very
sick.
it was
That's
very
kinda
Aaron
sick.
Rodgers esque. Like
Yeah.
I think Zach Wilson is a very talented quarterback, but I think dang.
Stop.
Zach Wilson is a very talented quarterback, but his ego kind of gets the best of him at times, I think. But having Aaron Rodgers there, I think has paid such huge dividends to him because he's actually able to learn from someone that's been doing the game for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times that's what a rookie quarterback needs. It's just that veteran presence there for them to kind of guide them and teach them and show them the ways essentially. And Zach
100%.
Wilson's been getting that from Aaron Rodgers, even though Aaron Rodgers is injured right now, because he's still been very active within the organization themselves.
Yeah. You know, having Aaron Rodgers there is almost like having a second quarterback coach.
Exactly. No, 100%. 100%.
So here's my question. You know, like Zach Wilson, his contract ends this year at the end of the season. At the
he
end
has
of
one
next
more year.
season.
Yeah, he has one more year.
If you're the Jets, what do you do?
It really depends. As much as I hate to say it, it really depends. Because if Zach Wilson's asking too much, like 15 to 20 million, like especially 20 million, right? We'll just say 20 million. If he's asking that, then you kind of walk. Because that's not worth he's not played that. He's not played like he's earned that money. So you can't really justify paying him 20 million a year for potential backup roles.
Do you think that Zach Wilson could excel with a different team?
Yeah, I mean, we saw that like Ryan Tannehill, as much as I don't like him, but he's kind of the perfect example of that. Right? Where we saw Ryan Tannehill not play great with the Jags, but play pretty good, I would say, with the Titans up until this year. I think it's a fair statement.
Yeah.
I think Zach Wilson could be the same thing. Because by the time his contract expires, he would be with Aaron Rodgers for 2 years, which I think is huge. And then if he goes to another team, like sometimes all you need is just a fresh start.
It's true. Sometimes all you need is just a fresh start.
Mm-hmm. So I think it could be huge for him.
Talking about fresh starts, Russell Wilson and the Broncos somehow righting the ship, trying to find a way back into the hunt for the playoffs while Buffalo is finding their way out. And this could be an interesting game come season end because,
Dude,
you know,
it's crazy.
This is a tiebreaker for a possibility in the wild card.
It's crazy because if the Bills don't have 12 people on the field for that field goal, then they win it when they missed.
Mm-hmm.
But since they had 12 people, they got to retry and they made it. So it's like, it's kind of fun because it's like, I feel happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like as a fan of football, like I don't know how to feel about the game. Because the
game just shouldn't have been that close.
It shouldn't have been, but like that last field goal was such a dumb mistake. No, like the second last field goal, right? When the Broncos missed it. That's such a dumb mistake that you make. It's like how and why? You know?
Yep.
So like I'm definitely surprised that was like that. I think we both called the Bills winning that game.
No, you called Broncos.
I did? Oh wow. I surprised myself.
You called Broncos. You said Broncos won it 27-21. I said Bills win it 28-7. But I would like to say I put an asterisk on it. I put an asterisk on it last week, and I said every time I say the Bills win, they end up losing. So I'm gonna say
Yep.
the Bills win because I want them to lose, and I was damn right.
I do remember you saying that, so I'll give you that
Yeah.
one. Okay. that's
So,
that's crazy. I don't know.
and I
Anything
mean, the
surprise you with
Bills
this
just
game?
didn't deserve to win that game. I don't know. Yeah, I am kind of surprised. Like the Broncos are showing grit, which we've seen them potentially have on a lot of close losses this season that just didn't go their way.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to see them win games in that fashion for us to say that they're a gritty team.
Right.
I think at this point they're right under 500. You know, they're sitting at 444. I think we could say that they're a gritty team. I think they could be a team that could end up getting a wild card spot, especially if the Bengals or the Browns or the Steelers end up starting to slip a little bit more, and the Bills and the Bills and the Jags slip as much as they have been.
Right.
Next thing we know, the Broncos might find a way to get into this thing. And the Broncos are starting to become a team that you don't necessarily want to play against.
It's definitely possible. Like Cortland Sutton, 8 catches, 53 yards, and a touchdown. But that touchdown catch was sick.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about toe drag swag, though. I mean,
True.
like you said, that team is gritty. They want to win, and they're tired of losing. So like I think they're on the up and up. I don't think they really necessarily make the playoffs, but I think I I believe that they have a bright future ahead of them. And I think they're starting to turn things around, but I just think it's too late
Yeah.
for them to turn things
Did you
around
see?
enough.
Did you see the drama with Marvin Mims now?
No, what's that?
So Marvin Mims was doing his walk around the field at the end of the game, and a fan handed him the phone, and he said, 0 catches, 0 catches. And he says, I can't catch the ball if it ain't getting thrown to me. At this point in the season, he has 11 receptions, 246 yards, and a touchdown. Not having the best rookie campaign, but I don't think he's playing horrible. It's just he is a rookie and he has things to learn. What do you think about that?
I mean, I loved him coming out of college, right? I thought he was a great player. He had great separation, great hands. But if he's not getting the ball, he can't catch it, right? I think kind of what it comes down to. And a lot of that I think has to come down to the play calling. They're really prioritizing prioritizing the run as of late, which is what I think they should be doing. And then they're throwing the ball enough to win, but they're really leaning into the run, and it's helping them win games.
That's true. Javonte Williams, he's grinding down teams, and Russell Wilson, he's made a career on being a field manager that is able to throw the ball deep.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he did this game. Cortland Sutton having a long of 30 yards. Perrine having a long of 18. Judy having a long of 19. Javonte Williams having a long of 18. Not necessarily bombs, but consistently, tossing the ball deep. And obviously the Bills drama, whether it be Stefon Diggs' brother tweeting about how Stefon Diggs needs to be lent out of Buffalo, which I've been saying that this whole season. So I'm glad that Trayvon and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
Or Ken Dorsey being terminated.
Oh yeah, that's another hot topic.
So thoughts on that?
I get it because it's kind of like the Steelers offense in a sense, and it's not really a dig at the Steelers at all, but it's like the Bills have been very hard pressed to score points and score more than I believe 26 points in most of their games in a way that the Steelers have been. So I get the firing. I just didn't expect it to be halfway through the season, to be frank, but they felt like it was dire enough that they need to do it now because I think the Bills are more of a championship contender than the Steelers, so maybe that's potentially why. But I support the firing because the Bills have looked pretty awful on offense. They look pretty stagnant. They look pretty stale. They almost look like they don't know what they're doing. And then the play calling also has been pretty awful. It's like, why are you doing a short dink and dunk when it's a 4th and 15 or 3rd and 15 kind of thing? You know,
Yeah.
they just don't look like they used to.
So Brett Coleman did a video about the Bills offense literally right before this Broncos game.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought up a stat called PPPP, which is projected points per play.
Mm-hmm.
What projected points per play is it reflects on every play how many points you should be scoring based on how explosive a play is.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills lead the league in an elite fashion on PPPP. Now, obviously, that doesn't reflect the actual points. It's just projected points.
Right.
Something else is the Bills are ranked 7th on offense per game on an average. So they're ranked 7th on average yards per game this season.
Mm-hmm.
And they just haven't been able to finish drives. With that being said, I don't support the firing. I think it was a dumbass decision, especially with who they decided to hire, which I'll get into that in just a moment. The reason I don't like the firing is because of the yards I just mentioned. You know, there's just times where a team isn't able to click and finish it off in the red zone.
Right.
And I think Ken Dorsey proved that he was a good enough offensive coordinator to be given that slack. Even if the Bills didn't make the playoffs this year, Ken Dorsey proved that he was good enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Ken Dorsey is the issue with them scoring. I think Josh Allen is. You know, I don't think it's play calling nearly as much. I think it's more Josh Allen's side. You know, it also doesn't help that Josh Allen had a fucking horrible game against the Broncos. And the thing is with Josh Allen is the way you beat Josh Allen is you get in his face and you don't let him get out of the pocket. You keep him contained, you get in his face, and you have a game like this. 15 for 26, a touchdown and 2 picks, only 177 yards. You know, he only rushed 4 times for 13 yards. He had a total of 190 yards on the day and 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. You know, like
you get that pressure in his face with a QB spy over the top and you're golden.
Yeah. You know, as I said, I wanted to go ahead and circle on who they went ahead and hired as the interim offensive coordinator, and that's Joe Brady, which was the quarterback's coach. So pretty much the second in command to Ken Dorsey.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't get it. You fire Ken Dorsey in the middle of the season, and then you go to a second-hand man instead of hiring from the outside in. Like, if Ken Dorsey was that big of an issue that you can't even keep him till the end of the season, then why the hell are you hiring the guy underneath him that is making the play calls with him?
Yeah, no, so I don't agree with the timing of the firing, right?
Yeah.
Because I think if they're going to fire him, they should at least wait until the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
For them.
I agree 110%.
Joe Brady, I think I'm not sure is he going to help at all. I think what you hit it you hit it right. It's Josh Allen. I think is kind of the root of the problems. Almost.
I mean, like, Josh Allen has already peaked. And the thing is, like, Josh Allen gets put into great QB conversations. So let's have the great QB conversation. How did you beat Joe Montana? Was there a routine way for you to beat Joe Montana?
Right.
Was there a routine way for you to beat Dan Marino?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a routine way for you to beat Tom Brady? Was there a routine way for you to beat Terry Bradshaw? Was there a routine way for you to beat Roger Staubach? Was there a routine way for you to beat Steve Young? Was there a routine way to, you know, the list can go on and on and on. Ben Roethlisberger. Was there Peyton Manning? No. The answer is no to all those guys.
It was different every game.
Yeah.
On how you had to beat them.
And especially as their career progressed, like especially those guys like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger,
They got
guys
smarter.
that played long careers, as their bodies started to wear down, they got smarter.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen, I mean, like, let's have this discussion. Josh Allen without Stephon Diggs, what did he look like?
Well, we only have 1 year, which is rookie year.
2 years.
Like-
He had 2 years.
2 years, which was not good.
So, yeah. So his first 2 seasons, mind you, were in his 6th year. So his first 2 seasons, he had 2,074 yards, 10 touchdowns, 12 picks, his rookie season. His sophomore season, he moves up to 3,089 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. So, like, still not great.
But good. I put it in the good category. Like, that's pretty
I would say average.
solid. That's pretty solid.
Then 2020, he has a great year. 4,544 yards, 37 touchdowns, 10 picks. Following season, very similar stat line, 4,407 yards, 36 TDs, 15 picks. So a little bit too many picks, but, neither give or take. Then in 2022, towards the end of the season, I started noticing this decline. And that's why I kind of was like, huh. And that's why I've been kind of on that Josh Allen hate train so much this season. Because, 42, 83, 35 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Sure, it looks great, but like also towards the end of the season, I just seemed like defenses started to catch up with him.
Yeah.
Do you know what defenses have been doing against the Bills this season?
Tell me.
They've been playing a scheme called Trap X, which, X receiver. The idea is you're just going to throw a direct double team on Stephon Diggs. So they call it Trap 14 is the audible. Trap 14, which means Stephon Diggs is not getting the ball.
Right.
And in games Stephon Diggs is not getting the ball, the Bills are losing. So
yeah, because like
just
you
side
can't
by
really, you can't really trust anyone else on the Bill side of the ball to get that. Like Stephon can, right? So it's like, are you going to
100%.
reliably throw to Gabe Davis? No, you're not. Gabe Davis is a very good, is I would say a good receiver. But Josh Allen's not going to reliably throw the ball to him like he would to Diggs.
Correct.
Same thing with, you could almost argue with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid at the tight end spot. So like it almost feels like the Bills are very one dimensional.
And in the weirdest way.
Yeah, on the receiving side of the ball, because they got good rushers, right? They got good people running the ball. But like on the receiving side of the ball, they feel very one dimensional. Because it's like it's Diggs or nothing almost.
Yeah. So let me run some stats for you. They lost to Denver. Stephon Diggs was targeted only 5 times. 3 receptions. They lost to Cincinnati. Diggs was only targeted 7 times on 6 receptions. They beat Tampa Bay on 12 targets to 9 receptions to Diggs. They lost to New England on 12 targets and 6 receptions to Diggs. They win against the Giants on 16 targets, 10 receptions to Diggs. They lose to Jacksonville, 11 targets, 8 receptions to Diggs. They beat Miami on 7 targets, 6 receptions to Diggs. They beat Washington, 12 targets, 8 receptions to Diggs. And they beat the Raiders, 7 receptions on 7 targets, 66 yards to Diggs. So they only lose one of those games that Diggs has 7+ callbacks on.
Right.
Only one loss. 7 receptions to Diggs. And, you could stop and say, well, that's a lot of receptions to have for a player consistently. The thing is, when you have a player like Stephon Diggs, 7 receptions isn't enough.
It's really not. Especially when you rely on him like the Bills do, right? Like he should be getting the ball at least 10 to 11 times a game at this point.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, do what you did against the Giants. You barely beat the Giants, but you turn to Stephon Diggs in your moment of need and you say, please get us out of this. You give him 16 targets, he gets 10 receptions and 100 yards, and he carries you to a fucking victory.
Yep.
That's what happens.
Yep.
So,
It's unfortunate.
yep. All right. So, any topics you'd like to go through before we chat back with chat?
Nope. Hit us with chat.
All right. So, chat saying, how the hell did you get into my house?
Okay.
Wild. Chat said you're
So-
late. Broderick Jones is the reason we're running the ball better. Reference to the Steelers. Kid is a leader and a great lineman. He's playing out of position and still dominating. Finally seeing what the two-headed monster could do at running back. Grinders are still viable. Every team wishes they had one come November through January. Najee adds finesse and grind. Look at him catching out of the backfield on open space, and the guy can juke. If we move Peterson to the other safety, problem solved. In reference to Van Der Esch, he had neck issues coming out of college. He's a bright kid. I could see him as a color commentator. He don't need to risk it if the percent of a bad ending are high. And then someone said, bro, someone in OSRS, old school RuneScape, just finished catching 1 billion monkfish. That's wild. And I think that's where we end the episode.
That's so funny.
Shout out to Santa, bring us info on the RuneScape monkfish economy. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I think it's a good place to end it. Honestly, though, like something a
I
little bit
agree.
out of pocket that's just random.
Yeah,
I fucking love it.
I agree. Send us off, Shane.
All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you staying along with us for the whole ride. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do whatever the media tells you to do. Birds are not government spies. I promise you that. Rats are not listening to you. And don't forget to throw me a follow on twitch.tv/Derpimation. Give our Facebook group a follow as well. And check us out on Spotify. With that being said,
And Apple
I hope
Music.
you guys
bro,
have a great
come
night.
on, and everything else.
and Apple Music,
Gosh.
and
Jeez
oh my fucking
Louise.
God, I'm so embarrassed right now. I'm so fucking.
You
embarrassed
should be
right
so embarrassed. You forgot so much. Like Discord at the Sporting Lounge. It's in our link tree. Everything else. Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
that's true.
man.
That's true.
Golly. And our YouTube.
I never had
page
to do-
At,
You
and our
guys,
YouTube.
you guys never
at,
gave,
And our YouTube at the
I-
Sporting Lounge podcast.
bro. That's what I was referencing. Like, comment, subscribe, bro. Come on. What else would that be? What else would like, comment, subscribe be on?
I just had to check you, Shane. All right.
Yeah, you trying?
I'm trying. I'm successfully doing it.
Yeah, bro, you trying?
I'm doing it.
You checking me like those Virginia polls?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay,
Anyways,
good-
I'm about to
good
start
night.
checking you like the amount of monkfish this dude has in his inventory. Send us off, Austin. Bye.
Good night.